Desert. How you doing this week?
Hey, Happy New Year, Christian. Good to hear from you again. We got one more year to go. How about that?
2010. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. Well, Christian, I just want to let everyone know for the new year, I'm trying to start the new year out right, and I've got less than 30 days, getting ready to hit the wall with having to make this radio network fly. And donations have dropped off, and at this rate, the way we're going, we're not going to make it after January 31st. And so if the people, I'm going to give something that maybe they'll be interested in, okay? I've got the Ultimate Dictionary, which is the Real Da Vinci Code that I'm doing based on original thought. I'm doing a translation of the original Gospel of Jesus the Christ. I started it three days ago. And then I started doing a dictionary in the back, and it just expanded into what is going to be my Real Da Vinci Code dictionary. And then in the back of that, I've got an appendix with the Gospel of Thomas, based on original thought. And so the translation itself, based on original thought with the original Gospel and the Gospel of Thomas, is unsurpassed in our modern time. Whereas Kipling said, "East is east and west is west, never the two shall meet." It's no longer true because on this radio programming in the morning when I read, and when I do my replays in the evening, and now in the book itself, the original Gospel of Jesus Christ and the Real Da Vinci Code Dictionary, we bring East and West together. But what I did over the past several days is I spliced in there all of the occult words in the courtroom, the legal diction, the most powerful definitions on sovereignty, on absolute right, on commercial aspects of the law, and then so it's all in there from original thought to occult words, and then the legal diction, and this is going to be the most powerful dictionary probably in history, and it probably just about is right now based on its total content, and I only just got started. Okay, so if anybody would like to get a sample of that, the beauty behind the electronic media that we have today, where I don't have to stuff an envelope, don't have to burn a CD. For our friends that are on Skype, all you have to do is send us any size donation, any size, okay? Any size, and I said any, okay? Then you'll get a copy of the draft, the first draft that's going on right now, and I'll get the notation by email through PayPal. Send me confirmation with your phone number and your Skype name if you have Skype. If not, I can email it to you. Then give me your email. And I'll get it to you no later than tomorrow, okay? I'll be glad to do that for any size donation. And then when you want to get the next edition, the next draft, like in 2 weeks, and you see the progress that's going on, then just send any size donation. Again, $1, $5, if you're real generous, $10. But this is a way you can support the radio network, and at the same time support the Peshitta Targum Restoration Project, which is what I do, the Peshitta Targum translation, meaning it's the pure, the clear, the simple interpretation and meaning of the scriptures like you've never had before. So we're doing something very powerful, and just consider that when you loan unto the Lord, because I surrendered to the Heavenly Father a long time ago. This is not my radio network, it's His. But we brought Christian Walters on, never asked him for a dime. And we don't do any, we're not commercial. We don't try to sell you something, with all of our, don't compare us with any other radio network. We have to pitch it now because it's about survival. But if the money were coming in, the donations were coming in, I wouldn't be pitching it. But I'm trying to give you something now to make it worth your while. You can support a happening and the most powerful translation on earth coming up next. And I'll get it to you, okay? So there you go. Thank you for your support and your consideration. And now let's get on with Money, Banking, and Trust by Moving Titles and Commerce with your host, Desert Owl. I'm Desert Owl, okay. And Christian Walters. Christian?
Okay, thanks, Desert. Yeah, if you could help out, this new year, give Desert did you give the address, Desert, where to send it to?
Well, all they have to do is go to the contact page, on our network. If for any reason, and that, of course, is therealpublicradio.net, therealpublicradio.net. This is being recorded, and so someone may have it on a CD. And also, if you want Christian's program, right after the program, I can get that to you by file transfer as well. Okay, I'm good to go. I finally figured out how to do all that stuff. I'm not computer savvy, but I now know how to do it. So, tonight, tomorrow morning, you can be looking at the recording by email. I have, or by a file transfer on Skype. Our Skype name is Free America Radio. Free America Radio. It's on the archive page to find that. Because I've got one CD I've got to burn, and I apologize to one of our listeners out there. That's the problem with being a one-man operation. But Beth, is it Beth in Galveston, I think, is waiting for her CD. I'm going to get that, and I apologize for the delay. It's just, we're trying to do it all with one body right here, and that's not easy. But if you are listening to this and you don't have computer access and you're on the phone line, remember the streaming is free, but we're going to peak out probably tonight, and we don't have enough stream capability or bandwidth, but we're going to give it all we got. But it's Free America Radio Network, Free America Radio Network, and that's 121 C Park Circle. That's 121 SCAPARC, 121 C Park Circle. That's Suite B, as in boy, Suite B, Kingsland, Georgia. That's one word, Kingsland, KINGSLAND. 31548, 31548. That's Free America Radio Network, 121 C Park Circle, Suite B, Kingsland, Georgia, 31548. And thank you again for your support. We're going to be bringing you the Forbidden History later on tonight. What they didn't want you to know, they've tried to kill me numerous times, and we're still here doing it. That's the miracle of serving the Great Father. Then stay tuned for the Forbidden History series when Christian is done, trying to answer all your questions, okay? And thanks for doing that, and we'll look to hear from you. Christian?
Okay, thanks, Desert, again. If you're just listening on the internet through the call-in number and you just don't intend to ask a question, it'd be better if you took the pressure off of the dial-in number and accessed us through the web if you had web access. So we appreciate it if you jump off the number and dial in on the, or not dial in, but you can get the access to the show right now through the realpublicradio.net, and that will free up the lines so we won't max out the line. If you have intention to ask a question,
finish your point, then I got one more point. Go ahead.
If you have intention to ask a question, well, then the dial-in number is 712-432-8773, and the access number is 179-441-pound.
Yeah, and Christian, we now have a new feature for the benefit of our listeners. We have, if they go to your program schedule at 7 p.m., then they're going to see the chat with special guests. And if they click on that, it's going to take them to the chat room, and they can say hi to the other listeners that are out there wherever they are around the world, across America, and get to know each other and interact. So it's one of our features we just add because of our Sunday programming, Mel at Mel's Bar and Grill, where they deal with the Barfly Association and how people get grilled and they can grill back. Well, she wanted to have a community board, so we created one. So go there and check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Love to hear from you that way as well. So maybe Christian's engineer can check it out and also interact with everybody there. If you got questions or you're having trouble with, let's say, unmuting, then you can separate there and put it all capital letters. If you're having an audio problem or any type of a problem, use all capital letters. It's easier to see, and that'll be considered a caveat, okay? All right, Christian, let's do it.
Okay, thanks, Desert. Welcome, everyone, to this Saturday, January 2nd, brand new year, 2010. Welcome to the show, Money, Banking, and Trust by Moving Titles and Commerce. I'm your host, Christian Walters. And we've been talking about trust here the last 2 months, especially NTT as new trust technology, as a revolutionary or quantum leap in technology. And the book I've been really going through is a basic primer for trust, and that's Gilbert Law Summaries. And you can get that at any bookstore, or you could go to a law library, and you could get it there probably right off the shelf. And it's called Gilbert Law Summaries, and they make different ones for, like, contracts, tort claims. But this one you want to get Gilbert's Law Summaries Trust. And it's by Edward C. Halbach, Jr. And I have a 2008 version, and do not get anyone less than 2008 because you won't be able to follow along with me. So I'm going to be talking about on page 19 of the book, which is expression of trust intent. So really, expression of the trust or expression of the grantor's intent. I'm going to be focusing on intent. I received an email here this week, and this person had said he's been listening to a particular number of audio from the download, and he went out and he filed a UCC 1s and 3s based on that audio. And then he listened to another show, and he said, it sounds like I have done them all wrong. I've attached them here so you can look at them, and I was confused while listening towards the end of that one he looked at. And then because it sounded like the UCC 3 was to transfer the title to the bank, that wasn't what I did. And please review my documents here if you know it's workable, because towards the end you mentioned that expression of the trust was the manifestation of the grantor's intent. And if I was the grantor, and it was my intent that I was the beneficiary, then wouldn't the UCC 3 be geared towards transferring the title to me if that was my original intent? Well, let me say this, not to be facetious, but, sir, you do not understand one thing about trust, and you're going to dig yourself into a hole, because you do not understand what the UCC 1s and 3s are being used for, and you're going to end up getting yourself into bigger trouble than when you started. And he continues on. Anyway, please let me know what you think, and I'm still in the process of finding a confident notary. And I would say, really, it's not finding a confident notary or even a competent notary. You're not going to find one, period. There are no competent notaries out there. You're going to have to know how to teach one. And if you don't know, you better get your butt in gear and figuring out what you got to know to teach the notary, because the notaries do not know any of this. If you are lucky enough to find one, praise the Lord. But you better become competent yourself so that you can teach a notary that is willing to do his duty. And that's what you got to point out to him. This stuff is his duty to do it, but you got to know where to show him that it is his duty in your statutes and codes, and you got to know what it is he's got to do. So you better get busy. We got a brand new year here. This is the year of enforcement of trust. So welcome in the new year with a big bang here, because really it's like, I liken it to there's no bang for the New Year's unless you know and understand intent. Intent is really the dynamite is no good without a detonator. So unless you know and understand intent is the detonator. If you don't know what intent is, walking into court with your dynamite paperwork, it's not going to work because you don't have the detonator. You can't take dynamite paperwork into the court, into a DIB hearing, unless you have a detonator. So it's no good without a detonator. So if you want the bang for the new year, you got to understand what you're doing. Intent. Section 65 says in the general, it is essential to the creation of the express trust that the settler objectively manifest a final, definite, and specific intention that the trust should immediately arise with respect to some particular property. Now, what is manifest? A final, definite, specific intention. Number 2, Section 66, form of expression. There must be some external manifestation of intention by words or by conduct. Let me read it again. There must be some external manifestation of intention by words or by conduct. It is not enough for the settler's intent, if it was formed in her own mind if she gave no external manifestation thereof, nor are there vague expressions of donative intent sufficient. The settlor must manifest a specific intent to create, as to some particular property, a relationship known in the law as a trust. 67. Wording. This is the bingo I keep talking about. No particular words are required. The term trust need not even be used. Nor is it essential that the settlor or any other parties involved know or understand that the intended relationship is a trust, unquote. If the court finds that the parties intended to form a certain relationship with respect to the property involved, and if the law defines that relationship as a trust, then the parties' intention to enter into that relationship provides the requisite trust intent. So the bingo. It's not essential that the settlor or any other parties in the trust involved know or understand the intended relationship as a trust. And thus, that's how you are deceived. And that's how we could use this against them. Because this is how they've apothecated you into the system. And you can do that to them. You can reverse it on them. So even if they didn't know or understand, it works just exactly the same way backwards as it does forwards. But it has to come with the understanding of what is the expression of the intent. What is the manifest specific intent to create a trust? Section goes on about communications. Section 70, which is really a conduct or an act as evidence. And that's really what we use a UCC 1 or UCC 3 for, creating evidence, a record. Because the record is going to be the recording of the act or the deed of your expression of the trust. So provided there is some external expression, there always has to be an external expression, except maybe one instance. So there has to be some external expression, essentially some admissible evidence. Admissible evidence. The settlor's failure to communicate the trust intention to the beneficiaries or others does not prevent the trust from arising, though. I like to give the example, if I just give you my pen and say I want it back. We just formed a trust. There was nothing mentioned about intent, although it was my intent. By the act, and especially if there are witnesses there, and I need to make sure that I have a record created to be able to present to a court, say, 2 witnesses or more. And then just how do I do that? They're talking about relationships a lot. Fiduciary, agency, debtor-creditor relationship, and others, in relation to trust relationship. So we must think very carefully about the relationships we are forming daily, moment by moment, especially the ones with the alleged government, in particular the IRS, Form 1040, and other IRS forms. I'm going to get back to that form in a minute. And we must learn that actions and conduct determines intent, whether or not we know or understand what we are doing. Our own ignorance and understanding makes us incompetent to handle our own trust affairs. And we need a babysitter, a.k.a. the alleged government. Our own manifestations of the intent by our own actions and deeds or conduct determines our status as trustee or beneficiaries. Whether we know or understand makes no difference. Intent does not determine actions and deeds in their realm, in the public. Actions and deeds or conduct determine intent. Let me say that again. Intent does not determine actions and deeds in their realm. Actions and deeds or conduct determines intent. Intent is then not known or understood, and this is how they are hypothecating us into slavery. Ponder that thought for a moment. Actions and deeds or conduct determine intent, and intent is then not known and understood, and this is how they are hypothecating us into slavery. It's not intent does not determine the action and deeds in their realm. Its actions and deeds or conduct determine intent. Last week I gave 3 examples. I had to draw a piece of paper out and split it into thirds and 3 blocks. And in the first block, 1 through 3 examples, the first example was 3 circles, and each circle was a different title of the trust. One circle was the grantor, the second circle was the trustee, and the third circle was the beneficiary. Now we draw a line from the grantor to the trustee, and we draw also an arrowed line going towards the trustee, and we also draw another arrowed line from the trustee to the beneficiary. Now this represents the path that the trust res from the grantor must take in order for it to wind up through the trustee in the beneficiary's hands. That's one example with 3 entities, 3 circles. The second example was with 2 entities, 2 circles. The top circle was the grantor / beneficiary, and the bottom circle was the trustee. And we draw a line from the grantor side of the top circle down an arrow to the trustee, and that was a delivery or a transfer of trust res property. And then we draw another arrowed line from the trustee on the other side up to the beneficiary, which is the first circle again, because the grantor is also the beneficiary. And then this is the caveat, I want it back. That was my intent. So the key is really intent. It's really actions or conduct based on intent. And how do I prove intent? By the manifestation of intent by a record of an act or a deed. An example, by declaration or a recording and a recorder, or possibly UCC 1 or 3. So the key is the intent. So now, third example. 2 entities again. We have a top circle with the grantor this time / trustee being in the circle. And then we have the bottom circle, who is the beneficiary. So now we draw a line, an arrowed line from within the circle, from the grantor within the circle to the trustee. There really was no delivery or transfer that taken place because it was within himself. Because the grantor is also the trustee, and he's one person, he's one entity. And then we draw an arrowed line from the trustee down to the beneficiary. Because all trust res has to go to the beneficiary. And you need to get these 3 examples fixed in your mind of what's really happening and how it's happening, and pay particular attention to how the labels within the entities are changing. Let me see if I can find that real quick where it was given the example. I think that was on page, check here. That's not where I thought it was. I lost it. There's a specific example in this book here if I could find it quick. All right, it's on page 79. It's the creation of an inter vivos trust example under section B there. The section number is section 265. It says the requirement of effective present transfer or declaration. To create a living or inter vivos trust, there must be an effective present transfer of the trust res. Present transfer of trust res. A conceptual problem exists regarding a declaration. A conceptual problem exists regarding a declaration of trust. The present declaration may be said to substitute for a transfer. Substitute for a transfer. But it could also be said that there is a transfer from the settlor as an individual to the settlor as trustee. So I've just, instead of settlor, I've used the example grantor. But it's grantor as the individual, as grantor as trustee within himself. Same example. The latter approach is followed here, but the question is essentially semantics and moot. Why? Because it's transferred within himself, but there's no record of a transfer. And the only way he can say that he transferred property would be by declaration. And that's about the only time this type of declaration is used, because it can't be used in any other form. It's only used within the settlor when the settlor is himself as trustee, or grantor as within himself as grantor as trustee. This is also, see generally the closely related discussion of present intention to create a trust. That's sections 81 through 91. The sufficiency of a transfer is determined by the standards applicable to the similar non-trust transfers under real property and personal property laws. Mostly doctrine involves gift transfers. But you see, they're talking about a different kind of declaration where you're actually creating a record of, say, an actual physical transfer of the property, and it's not within itself. It would be to a third entity. A third entity as the trustee. And that is the second example. So you really can't use a declaration the same way you use a declaration in, say, in 2 as you use it in 3, because the declaration is going to be used totally different. A lot of this stuff is maybe confusing. But until you get it straight in your mind, I certainly be going out and using any UCC 1s and 3s. And don't just rely on any one download of any particular thing and assume you know it all. You're going to get yourself in trouble. So now, Black's Law, 8th edition, intent. It says intent is a state of mind accompanying an act. An act or a deed. Really, you think a deed of trust or a deed that you record in the county is some kind of piece of paper that represents the ownership. No, it's an affidavit that it was representing the facts that an act was completed, that you completed a transaction. That's what a deed is. A deed is an act, not a piece of paper that represents title. Intent, the state of mind accompanying an act, especially a forbidden act, while motive is the inducement to do some act. Intent is the mental resolution or determination to do it. When the intent to do an act that violates the law exists, motives become immaterial. And it says compare motive and sentier. So going on, it says the phrase with intent to or its equivalent may mean any one of at least four different things. One, that the intent referred to must be the sole or exclusive intent. And two, that it is sufficient if it is one of several concurrent intents. And three, that it must be the chief or dominant intent, any others being subordinate or incidental. Number four, that it must be a determining intent, that is to say, an intent in the absence of the act which would not have been done. An intent in the absence of which the act would not have been done. The remaining purposes being insufficient motives by themselves, it is a question of construction. Which of these meanings is the true one in a particular case? Now we jump down to constructive intent. Constructive intent, a legal principle that actually intent will be presumed. Presumed. When an act leading to the result could have been reasonably expected to cause that result. And that's what they do in their realm, in the public. It's all about presumptions. So it's about a presumed intent. Going on, it says the constructive intent is a fiction. That's a definition of a legal fiction. A constructive trust. And we're talking about constructive intent here. Constructive intent is a fiction which permits lip service to the notion that the intention is essential to criminality, while recognizing that unintended consequences of an act may sometimes be sufficient for guilt of some offenses. Now let's go to motive. Motive in Black's Law 8th edition. Motive. Something, especially willful desire, that leads one to act. There's always this act in here. Remember, the act is a deed. You go down to recording court and you record that. The term motive is unfortunately ambiguous. Ambiguous, wow. That feeling which internally urges or pushes a person to do or refrain from doing an act is an emotion. And is, of course, the evidential towards his doing or not doing the act. They're always looking for evidence. And when that evidential fact comes in turn to be evidenced, that's the manifestation, we must rely on two sorts of data. A, the person's own expressions of that emotion. Example, I hate him, or I wish I owed that necklace. And B, external circumstances likely in human experience to arouse the emotion. Example, a slander on D may be evidence that D became angry. A pursuit of money left in the sight of D may be evidence that D's desires to have it was aroused. And now this second sort of evidential circumstances, B, is loosely referred to as motive, though in reality it is only evidence again, of the emotion, which itself is essential of the act. Now let's go to sentier. Very interesting term. Sentier. Black's Law 8th edition. A degree of knowledge. Now remember that no parties in the trust need to know or understand they are forming a trust. Know or understand. Back to sentier. Degree of knowledge or know that a person that makes a person legally responsible for the consequences of his or her act or omission. There it is, act again. Or omission. Omission is an act. Omission is an act. U.S. versus Tweedle case will point that out. The fact of an act having been done knowingly, especially as a ground for civil damages or criminal punishment. See knowledge, mens rea. Number 2, a mental state consisting in an intent to deceive, manipulate, or defraud. So let's jump down to sentior action. A lawsuit in which the plaintiff must prove that the defendant acted knowingly or knew of the danger. You see, we've been trained to believe that a person can't do something without first knowing and understanding. Well, in our private realm, you're right. But everything in the public realm is flipped backwards, and it's like looking in that mirror image, and you're in Oz, and you're not in Kansas anymore. And now you don't have to know and understand. All you have to do is complete an act, and you can be duped into the act because you don't know or you don't understand what you're doing. This definition here, the sentior action, a lawsuit in which the plaintiff must prove that the defendant acted knowingly or knew of the danger, contradicts all this stuff that's in Gilbert's Law Summaries under statutes and code statutory trust. Because under a statutory public side trust, you do not have to know or understand that a trust is being formed, and a lot of other things you don't have to know or understand about because they're getting you this way. But that does not negate the trust if the elements are there for the trust, and one of the methods of formation are there. The fact that you didn't know or understand what you were doing has nothing to do with it. And I come back to the example. If I gave you my pen, you didn't know I was forming a trust. In fact, I didn't even know I was forming a trust as grantor. But that doesn't negate the fact that the evidence is there that I handed you a pen, which is qualification and delivery under one of the methods of formation of a trust, which is comes under number 2, transfer. The delivery, B is delivery. When I delivered the pen to you as trustee, and you didn't know you were a trustee, and I didn't know I was appointing a trustee, that does not negate the fact that a trust was formed because we had all the intent, the purpose, we had the parties, we had the specific trust res, and we had one of the methods of formation, and bingo, the law will recognize that to be a trust, and you're in deep shit. That's also Section 23 on the restatements of second on the law and trust, as well as in this Gilbert's Law Summary book on page 19 in Section 67, which I've read earlier. And if you walk into court and you expect to prove the trust, the expression of the trust, you better have the elements and you better have the records down, because he who claims trust must prove trust. So this little example here does not, the sentior action definition does not fit today into their realm. Because under that definition, you must know, you must knowingly or knew of the danger. But yet this says different. I do not have to know or understand. And what they're looking for is evidence of the facts. Makes no difference whether you knew or understood. They're looking for the evidence. And evidence is what gets you. Because you signed supposedly colorable contracts representing debtor-creditor records. And all along, they've been gathering these records, this evidence against you in case they ever needed it. And you have not been gathering any evidence or records on your end prove that it was a trust, nor do you know how to create any. And that's the problem. You don't even know how to tell a notary how to create a record. How do you know if he's creating a record right? We don't even know how to do basic government, which is through notary. We don't know how to call due process and give everybody notice in due process. And how do we give them notice?
The phone stopped in there, Terry. The phone stopped in there.
So it's all about knowing and understanding. And going by this definition here, this is a contradiction to really their realm, because if you go by you must know or you must understand, then it's in contradiction to what their realm is. But this is how they're tricking you on the intent. Because you think that intent is, well, I must know and understand, when they're saying no, intent is really, you don't have to know or understand. Intent is an act or a record of deed or the act that you did, whether you knew or understood it at all. So let's go to maybe understanding. Black's Law 8th edition, understanding or understand. Understand the verb. To apprehend, the meaning of to know. So there it is again, to know. Let me give an example. The testator did not understand that he was signing. Now, understanding, the noun. The process of comprehending. Here it is again, an act of a person who understands something. 2. One's personal interpretation of an event or an occurrence. And 3, an agreement, especially of an implied or a tacit nature. So you can get into a contract, color of a contract, just by your silence, your tacit nature. You're going to be agreeing to something by your silence, by this third definition of understanding. But 1 and 2 were the process of comprehending the act of the person who understands something. So they look at it and say, well, you obviously understood what you were doing, because here was the act that confirms. And then you're sitting there scratching your head and say, oh, I never knew I was the grantor. I never knew I was the trustee. Or I never knew I was the beneficiary. And how could I not know that I was any of these entities, but yet a trust is formed and I'm in it? Well, now you know. It's all about the intent being the creation of a record of an act of what you did, whether you knew or understood it at all. So it comes back down to the creation of the record to prove the intent. And that's where the notary comes in. Because I wouldn't do any kind of presentment of any documents without, number 1, going through a notary. Notary does a presentment under the UCC 3-501, 503, and 505. He creates a certificate under his hands and seal, which is his recording of his act and deed of what he did in a presentment. he presented such and such a documentation to, say, the UCC or to the county recorder, and it created a record of what he did. And then you can pull out certified copies and hold those also as records. But you got to come up with 2 or more records to prove any fact. And it's like a string of dominoes that is in a line. If any of the dominoes are out of place, the dominoes don't all go down. And if you're missing one of the links in the chain, or one of the links is defective, it isn't going to work for you. So if you're missing the foundational things about how to use a notary, or you don't know how to understand the moving titles platform, or you don't know how to create a record, or you don't know how to do a presentment, if you don't know how to do basic government, and then you complain about the judges and this government is all corrupt, when you're falling down on your face because of your own ignorance and incompetence, and believe me, folks, I've been there. I know what I'm talking about. I've been dumb most of my life. I've been ignorant most of my life. I've been incompetent most of my life. And if you come walking into truth and try to walk on into court and try to put truth into their court system, which is nothing more than fiction lies, you need to go for a psych evaluation, and I agree with the judge. We're doing it all wrong. We don't want to create an argument with them. We want to settle with our brothers quickly. At least they throw us in prison and extract every penny on their debtor-creditor contract that they got you into. And they got all kinds of records created to the fact that you are under a debtor-creditor contract, and you never expressed it being a trust. Now, who's the one that's at fault? Me or them? Me. All right. Desert, can we take a short break and then we'll come back? We'll open up for some questions. Desert, you out there?
Yeah, we're gonna do that, Chris, right now.
Yes, let's take a short break and then we'll come back and we'll open up for questions then.
So Christian's doing everything he's doing, and now back to money, banking, and trust. By Moving Titles and Commerce, your solutions are in your program with your host, Christian Walters. Christian?
Okay, thanks, Desert. I love that song. What's the title of that song?
You had to put me on the spot. That's Wade Fernandez. And the name of the song is, where are you at, Wade? Let's see here. Let me look at my box. Wade, where are you when I need you? Well, how about, Wait a minute. Is this it? No, that's Free Lunderpelt here again. Don't you know, Kristen, I lost the box. Okay, I'll let you know when I find out. But it's a good one. I'll try to get down. I just had to rip CDs. I got someone told me how to get a program to do that, so I'll try to get you the music then if you like it. How about that?
Yeah, I like that one song, yeah. We've been playing it all this time, so I think that grows on you.
Absolutely, yeah. It's good words, too. Okay. Back to you, Kristen.
All right, thanks, everyone. Take notice and agreement that this show and our documents is private and not to be construed or relied upon as being legal advice for an individual legal situation or employed for making legal decisions. And you will not use any of this information for making a legal decision or performing a legal procedure, and is not a substitute for legal advice and or guidance by a licensed attorney. This private show and or documents are for academic informational purposes only, to be used at your own risk without liability to Christian Walters. By accessing or reviewing this show or using the documents therein, you understand with agreement that, with all rights reserved without prejudice, Christian Walters is not an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Florida or any other state, and has not given any legal advice or accepted fees for legal advice, provide no assistance, advising, or guidance of any kind for use by non-attorneys or pro se parties in the preparation or use of the herein reference, and is not and has no interest in any issue referenced therein, and is not a party to this or any action arising from, and is only acting in his authorized capacity as liaison of the communications between the parties. By reading and or using this information, you acknowledge and agree that you are not a client of Christian Walters. These documents and or short recordings are incomplete and void without this notice agreement being attached herein by reference and a breach of this agreement. Upon breach of this agreement, the breaching party becomes liable for admiralty commercial damages of $100 million or more per stultification or impairment per Christian Walters' discretion. Thank you for your understanding. So, again, the call-in number if you want to ask questions is 712-432-8773, and the PIN number is 179441#. And if you'd like to send me an email, my email address is movingtitles, one word, movingtitles@hushmail.com. So, if you have a question, what is the number? Press star, is it 6 or 5? I forget now. Star 5, to raise your hand, and Desert will unmute you. Yeah. But let's keep the talk here towards, more geared towards intent, at least to start out with. And my question out there is, I gave you 3 examples last week, and we kind of went over them today. Can any of you think of a 4th example that might be added to that list?
And we got Frank in Florida.
Hi, Frank.
Hey, how we doing? Happy New Year to my beloved little brothers in the Messiah.
Very good, Frank.
Well, yep. You were cut off when you were saying about you were telling us about how to give notice. And I know that by declaration that that's true.
Of UCC. Really, it's the same, along the same principle lines of the trust, that no party in the trust needs to know or understand, and really under UCC 1-202, the same lines. The person you send the notification to does not have to know or understand anything about the notice. Just the fact that you sent it, that record of sending it, is the notification. And that's all. It is a legal record that stands up in court. Whether or not they got it, or whether they didn't get it, or whether they knew or they didn't understand. So that's 1-2.
I'm sorry. Could you give an example?
Well, if you just gave somebody an administrative process and you wanted to give them notification of the documentation, the notary does the presentment to them, and he goes to the post office, fills out the green cards and that, and sends it to them. Well, those green cards, that is the notice, whether or not they got it or not.
That'd be proof of notice.
Yes, that's the proof of the notice. That's a record that you sent it. It's not whether or not they got it or not. It's whether or not you sent it. If you sent it to their last known address, then by the law, under the public statutes and codes, recognizes that they've been notified, even though they may have never received it, or never read it, or never knew about it, or understood it. As long as they were sure by legal process, according to proof that they mailed it, that would be a delivery.
And then you can notice that they were the trustee to settle the accounts.
Yeah, I might want to set up some other things first before there was some other stuff leading up into that. But the things claiming of the title first, notice so I know it's mine, so I can then transfer it by delivery. And then once I transferred it by delivery, then I could transfer the notice of a UCC 3 assignment to them by notary presentment. And that assignment would be 3, which gives them notification that they're now holding liability. They're holding the title.
Right. Okay, I'll see you this week. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Almighty bless, keep and protect. And again, anybody who's on this call that doesn't do what they should, you're disinvited. Please. So please give your donations from your heart and your soul before you lose your spirit.
Frank, for that thought. Anybody's welcome. We're a free forum, you know. We're just asking for those who can, you know, to do it a little bit. You know, consider like, you know, just a little vote. Just a vote. A $5 bill is a vote, and I'll even give back the Real Da Vinci Code, the most powerful dictionary in the history of mankind. Right now, coming up next. Put me to the test, ladies and gentlemen. Put me to the test. If you make a donation at the PayPal account, I will, and you ask for it by email, and I'll Skype it to you or email it to you. You'll see what I'm talking about, okay? And I'll talk a little bit about it after Christian is done tonight. Before I do the Forbidden History series, I'll tell you what I got. I'll tell you what I got on this document, okay? That dictionary and / translation, okay? And so very good. And I'm going to Frank mute out. Hit star 1 and mute out, please. And we're going to bring on our next guest.
Hey, Desert, I had a question.
You bet.
Is there a blog on there now that we can, like, chat back and forth blogs? You know?
Yeah, you have a chat room.
But is there a blog also? Does it function as a blog?
Well, there's a blog that when you create the account, apparently you get a blog also, yes. You get a blog.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that,
Yeah. So I've already... I had, you know, I went to someone else's, and, you know, there it was. Yeah, it was like you know, MySpace. So you get, it's not just a chat room. It connects you with another bigger universe of people, apparently, you know. So
Can you do a blog show?
Oh, no, not for broadcasting, no, strictly for interaction, like, I don't know, you know, email or, you know,
If we had a blog, I could, like, post things up there, and, you know, you leave documents there, you can write questions, and people can answer back, and it's all on, like, in a blog.
maybe we can set one up for you on the network. Do you need something like that?
I was thinking it could be nice, you know, we could communicate back.
Then let's get with our web guy this week. I'll get with Michael, and I'll ask him about that, okay? And I'll tag you while we're working together, and we'll get that. So I'm writing a note. Okay, we got another question out there, 916 area code. State your first name and where you're calling from.
Hey guys, this is Jim in Northern California.
Okay, Jim, speak up. You're a little low, please.
Okay, can you hear me now?
It's better.
You got it?
Dude, all you got?
Okay,
Where are you at again,
listen.
Jim, where'd you say you were?
Northern California.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, that's good insight on the intent, and that posed a question to me, and I'm going to take this to, say, a typical grant deed of trust. Couldn't they flip that on us? If we're trying to re-express, let's say, that mortgage trust or that grant deed, couldn't they say that your intent by signature on this original grant deed contradicts what you're now putting in and re-expressing the trust?
Okay, first they'd have to have the record of that, but your correction of their record with your record is going to be the last one in is the first one out. It's LIFO.
Okay, and I just have a question or two. What mechanism or law of trust actually gives us the right to re-express that at any time? Is that the Section 342 in restatement?
I believe it's 342, yeah. It says you have the right to modify or revoke the trust, and I'm reserving those for myself when I express the trust.
Okay, I got you. And then,
So there's no question whether or not because they assume that, I think on the restatements assumes that on the third that all trusts are revocable unless they're specified to be irrevocable.
Right, and when we grant an irrevocable, because that language is in there, but you said earlier that you should irrevocably granting the trustee his duty power. Is that correct?
Yes, everything can be remodified by the grantor or the trustor if he reserves the right, if it's specified in the indenture or the expression of the trust. But then also, I think it's under 345, I think it's a mistake, or it might have been 342. If you claim mistake as grantor, that wasn't my intent, you have the right to come back in and modify it or revoke it.
Got it.
That gives you like carte blanche to modify at any time you really want.
Okay.
You can always
and then okay. And then one last question. In the re-expression of the trust, because I'm really very close to doing some things for myself, what form does that take? Does it have to be a trust document? I mean, I imagine it's going to have to be a trust document filed.
Depends whether you're talking statutory trust or whether you're talking private trust. Now, I might get away with just a statutory trust just by putting a notice in there that a trust exists.
Right.
And then my indenture with all the specific verbiage would be separate and would really be secret. And it's got nobody else's business to see that. In fact, Coca-Cola was an excellent example. They actually defied two judges' orders and that they withheld that. The judge ordered them to produce the trade secret information of the Coca-Cola formula, and they said it was in trust. They the court could never force them to reveal the formula for Coca-Cola, because it was a trade secret.
And so that's why you advocated if you're going to enter this into a court proceeding. And again, just to be very simplistic about it, I'm going to re-express the trust on my grant deed of trust for my home. And you indicated that doing a CCI and doing it in chambers is the way to go.
Only way to go, yeah. Because that's where all the private stuff is for the real man.
Right. Well, cool. Hey, last thing. Any idea when the webinar's coming?
Yeah, this month.
It is this month.
The webinar, you mean the workshop?
Yeah.
The webinar's already in place.
Really?
Yeah, we've already had a couple webinars and a couple meetings on DibDim, Monday night and Tuesday nights.
Okay, I was on the
continuation for the Saturday call, where the Monday call was more specific for a more private, a little higher level stuff, and the Tuesday call was more like a Q&A based off of the Saturday show.
Yeah,
not the workshop. I haven't announced the workshop just yet.
Okay, are you still doing Mondays and Tuesdays on DimDims?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And next up, let's see, we've got 816 area code. State your first name. Where are you calling from, please?
Rhonda?
Rhonda, where are you?
Hi, Missouri.
Okay, good to have you, Rhonda.
Thank you. I like that song, too, that you play there.
Okay.
Christian, tell me, would this be considered a notice? Have you seen on True TV is a new show called Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura hosting it? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that, no.
Okay, there's been 5 episodes. The first episode told us basically that they're using a HAARP program to mess with the weather and mess with our minds. The second program told us that they lied to us about 9/11. The third program told us that global warming's a fraud. The fourth program told us that Big Brother's watching everything we do and violating our rights. The fifth show, just this last week, told us that secret societies do exist, and they're planning to kill off 90% of us. Now, would you consider that to be notice?
It could be agent to principal, principal to agent, yeah, and that could be notice, yeah.
I mean, it's on a nationwide TV program called True TV. They're delivering a message.
Yeah, who's the principal? Is that True TV? You say this?
True TV is the network that it's on. I mean, it's just a thought that occurred to me because we talk a lot about notice, and you know that
they actually come out of harm's way because now they can't be claimed as a treasonous act because they've given us notice.
Exactly. And so, because everybody's been, this program's been on for, like I said, 5 weeks now, and a lot of people are saying, wow, why are they finally letting this out? I mean, we've known about this information for years now. Why all of a sudden are they putting all this information out there? And I'm not saying that Jesse's involved in any kind of thing like that, but I'm just saying, could they be giving us notice? And if they are, should it be something that we should respond to and not acquiesce to, like you said, so that they can have a clean conscience when they go to bed because they gave us notice that they're killing us?
Right. And you didn't say anything, so okay.
Yeah, so should we say something?
I believe we should, yeah.
Christian, can I respond to that? I've been in this arena for 20 years now. I've been doing this stuff, and everybody's been given notice back to Washington, D.C. There were, marches on Washington and everything else. But basically, they've told us everything they were going to do to us right from the beginning. They declared the people the enemy in 1933 or thereabouts with the War and Emergency Powers Act and banking holiday and all that. So, my view, of course, is Jesse Ventura would be, and I did see the first couple previews of his programming, and that he, you don't become governor by accident. He's just another actor, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so clearly they're just doing what they've always done, and that is tell us exactly what they're going to do to us, how and when. But they always pretend to be the good guy, but typically they're Jesuits, just like who was the one out of Washington that always talked about the guns. He worked for, Nixon. He put a match under his hand one day. These different players all come out like they're there for truth, and they're there for gun rights, and they're there, for the people. But you don't get all powerful, and do that kind of work and not be a player, because look at our network. I mean, I don't even have a car. I don't have, don't think we're going to make it past the end of the month the way it looks, and they get all the money and the backing and everything. Nothing happens by accident, and we had to create a radio network because we say it in a way like nobody else does with like My Forbidden History, My Words That Kill, my interpretation of the movies, and then work like Christian Walters, revealing the true nature of the commercial racket because there is no law. So we'll never be on the Genesis networks, which was bought by ABC or CBS. I heard when they mentioned it on the air that day, they bought the Alex Jones's network. Give me a break. The code word for military disinformation, public disinformation, is InfoWars. Well, then he's also telling us who he is, too. Back to you, Christian.
Okay.
Well, like Christian was saying, though, they're creating records. 100,000 people may go march on Washington, but there's no record created of why they was there.
Right. Something like that does not do anything, does not change government. They say that you have the right to protest, but they're creating a place that they can watch you and keep track of you. And protesters, they're right out in the public. We need to go where the grassroots, where government is formed, and change government at grassroots. You're wasting your time going protesting out these marches and things. You're not doing government there at all.
Do you think it would do any good, for instance, someone like me sits here and watches this, and it's on True TV, they're portraying it as the truth, which it is the truth, and would it do me any good to give them notice and make a record of it?
But the question is, where do you give the notice to, and how is the right and the proper procedure for giving a notice that's actually going to be heard?
You'd have to go to the principal.
To debate government again.
Yeah, forgive me, Christian, for jumping in and getting excited here, but my thought was you'd have to go to the principal and you got to take it to the Vatican. That's what they're all working for.
Yeah, that may be the ultimate principle, yeah.
Well, I just want to, mention that because I don't want to sit back and watch this and have them think that I'm acquiescing to it. If there's some way that we all sit back here and say, like you said, if they give you notice, they deliver the message, and you're too worried about the football score to get the message of what they just told you they're going to kill you, well, then you don't have no complaint. But I want them to know I got the message. And no, you don't have my consent to experiment on me. And no, I do know you lied about it, and that's not okay with me about 9/11. And I do know you're lying about global warming. And I do know there's secret societies trying to kill me. And no, they don't have power over me, and I don't give them consent to do so.
Well, I think it comes back down to expressing the trust again. You really have to express the trust. Because they're construing it to be under something else, which gives them the right to do whatever they want to do, because we didn't express the trust. That trust could be that my Bible is the trust, the master trust, or the Declaration of Independence. That I have all the
and I don't consent to them, being their slave or thinking that they, have free reign to do whatever they want to me.
Right.
And I was
comes back to the three little examples that I gave. 10. Can anybody think of a fourth example that might fit into this? And why or why not? So we have 3 entities in the first block, and the other 2 blocks, 2 and 3, we only have 2 entities. There might be a possible third or fourth scenario in there. Anybody look at that and say, okay, I think I know what it is? First block is you got grantor separate, the trustee separate, and beneficiary separate. The second one, you have 2 blocks or 2 entities, the grantor slash beneficiary, and you have the second one, trustee. In the third example, you've got grantor and trustee in one entity, and then the beneficiary, a second entity. Is there a possible fourth one? And why or why not?
Trustee beneficiary on one side and grantor on the other?
Okay, that would be the fourth scenario. Now the question is that one going to fit or not?
Not unless the grantor's holding the legal title and not the trustee beneficiary.
Because if you have grantor being separate and then you have another entity being trustee slash beneficiary, is there anything wrong with that?
Yeah, they're both holding the 2 titles together. You can't hold both titles, legal and equitable title.
And then what actually happens?
The trust terminates and the distribution of funds has to take place. And
okay,
that's what will have to happen.
A bit farther now. Was there even a trust formed?
No.
Why not?
Because one entity can't hold both titles.
Okay, true. When does the actual trust form?
When there's a transfer of a part of the title.
Great. Yes. Now, was there a transfer of the title when the beneficiary is the same as the trustee within itself?
No. It's a transfer.
There was no transfer because it's within itself. The point is moot. Just like it said in that example that I read. when it was the grantor slash beneficiary. Oh, excuse me, grantor slash trustee.
Right.
There was no delivery within himself. So that's why it had to do with declaration.
Right. He had to make a declaration to the other, to the beneficiary of what took place.
Because there was no record of delivery or no record of a transfer, and the only way you could create a record was to declare and make a record of that declaration.
That
And then that,
on the grant.
even though the transfer went with grantor to trustee within himself, the trust wasn't formed until the declaration was stated and recorded. So if the grantor was also, or if the beneficiary was, if the grantor was separate and the beneficiary was the same as the trustee, just as you said, the titles are in one entity, and that can't be. And plus, there was no transfer of trust res property, so there could not have even been a trust. It really starts coming back down to intent. So it's not intent as we usually think of it, that we know or we understand in order for that to be done. No, they say as long as you've got an act of something that was already done, it didn't make any difference whether you knew or understood it. It was the record or the deed that confirms and is the manifestation of your intent, even though you didn't know or understand.
Right, just like passing a pen, the transfer was made, even though nobody stated that. And I make it, when I tell the story, I make it a $50 pen. So I give you my $50 pen, I get called away. A week later, I come back. I ask for my pen back. You get your girl and hand me a 99-cent pen. That ain't gonna do. You
Right.
know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to go back, even though I didn't, there was no trust expressed at the time, that I said, hey, I'm the grantor, and I'm transferring my pen to you, and you're the trustee, and I'm the beneficiary, I want it back. Even though none of that was said, that was the intent when I passed it to you. And if you don't hand me back my $50 pen, my in-kind in, in-kind out pen, then I'm going to express my intent that, hey, this property was transferred, this is what happened, and I'm going to create the title and the pen and where it's at and who the trustee is and that they have it and they didn't give it back to the beneficiary when I come asking for it.
Right. Okay, got another question?
No, thanks. I just wanted to see what you thought about it. They're putting us on notice, and like I agree, they've been putting us on notice for a long time, but this is like blammo in your face notice. And I just wondered if you thought we should respond to that.
Yes, we should respond. The question is, where do we send it? How do we express the trust?
Okay, well, that's something to think about. Although, how much time do we have once they give us notice?
Who knows?
Okay, thanks. I'll talk to you later.
November 1st, 2012.
Yeah. Have a good day.
All right, Rhonda.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Has anybody thought about, because I said I was going to come back to the 1040 form, using these three examples here, I was toying this over this week about when did they get us into all this? When did they construe my intent? And when is it that happened that I didn't know or I didn't understand, but yet I need to start looking for it when it happened? And the only thing that I came up with was that the 1040 form is the declaration of the trustee status. The 1040 form is the declaration of my appointing myself trustee on this sub-trust. The IRS is a trust. The straw man is a trust. Different trust. So I may be on the Social Security account, maybe grantor beneficiary on that trust, but on this 1040 trust or the IRS trust that's set up, I appointed myself by declaration, by the form itself, as trustee. My own handwriting on that 1040 form, I appointed myself because that form is a declaration. The declaration of a trust and me being trustee. Because trustees make income and pay taxes. We need to re-express that trust. Take away that declaration as me being trustee and change that around to your beneficiary. So did anybody come across that out there last week when I said to go over those examples and compare them and try to put them into your life and think back on what you've done and all the relationships that you have formed moment by moment? And did any of them come up in your mind, in particular for the IRS being a trust, separate trust from the Social Security account trust, and that 1040 form was also a declaration? And there may be other IRS forms. In comparison to the trust, that we have an intent, a purpose, and parties and specific res. And we're looking for relationships, whether or not they're debtor creditor, or whether they're fiduciary or agency, or how do they compare to a trust. And since the fact that everything must be trust today, has to be trust today, because there is no lawful money to complete a contract, so every contract that we think we're completing, we're actually completing a trust. Are we becoming more aware of our trust relationships? That we're not forming the records for, and we're not expressing the trust. And all along, they're creating the records on their end that they're construing it under debtor creditor by the contracts that you signed under construement. And they're getting you on the performance, the acts, the deeds, the conduct. It had nothing to do with you knowing or understanding, but yet the records were created that proves that you're under a debtor creditor, because you have no records created under trust that it's any different. So it's all in the creation of the record to demonstrate the intent to be able to claim the trust first in order to prove it, because you're going to have to prove it after you claimed it. And if you have no records, you're going to lose. Who's next and what with the question?
Okay, we've got, see here. Looks like Frank again, Florida. Hey, Frank. You got your hand up? You put it back up? Hold on, you're not open yet. All right, now you're there. You there, Frank? Frank? Okay, I guess you just leaned on your phone. I'm going to mute you out then. All right, hang on. People got to remember to hit *5 to lower your hand again. Looks like we've got Jim in North California again. Let me unmute Jim. Jim, are you there?
I am. You got me okay?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, I did give some thought to what you were talking about. On the 1040 form, if you've ever noticed, there's a block that you fill in, and it says right next to it, label here. Have you ever looked up what the word label means?
Codicil.
Yep. And it's to change an existing or separate contract. It's a fixed next to your name to change an existing contract. Well, there wasn't an existing contract until you put that in on your first 1040 form. So you may have just contracted yourself into trustee position as opposed to beneficiary by labeling here.
Okay, remember what I said about creating evidence, that they're creating continually evidence to be under debtor-creditor?
But
Debtor-credit contract? But yet we can't have a contract because there's no lawful money, and really it's a trust? So you're being construing and going off in the wrong direction. You know,
I think what you're saying. But still, you are you're labeling your name to that trust. Perhaps that's the mechanism.
That's the evidence stating that it's under, say, a contract that is really not a contract. It's a trust because you didn't express it to be a trust.
That's right.
So any other questions?
No, that was it. I just thought that might be something. Thanks.
Well, that word codicil is pretty interesting because if you use the law of diction, going back to the original, you can turn the A silent or pronounce it, and codicil, it sounds like code, and then seal could be seal, the code that seals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Are you ready for another one?
Yeah, I'm just looking up label here.
Okay. Welcome all of our new listeners out there. Tell your friends about the network.
Okay, it says number 2 in the definition of a label. It says any writing such as a codicil attached to a larger writing.
How do you spell codicil?
C-O-D-I-C-I-L. This is a narrow slip of paper or parchment attached to a deed or a writ in order to hold a seal. You know, and it's a little, that little label up on the top there. A narrow slip of paper. These guys are slick, and they know exactly what they're doing. You know, at least there was some kind of masterful mind that diabolically came up with all this stuff. You know, but, you know, it really comes down to our own ignorance. We need to know and we need to understand. What we need to know and understand is that we don't have to, they don't have to know or understand, and we can get them. That's what we need to know. And that gives us all the power, just like Dorothy had in The Wizard of Oz. She had the slippers all through the movie, and at the end, the witch told her, hey, the good witch said, you had the power all along, except you would never believe me if I told you. People, you got all the power all along. You just need to know and understand it. It's all about trust. You're the 900-pound gorilla. Just cut the head of the snake off and go from there. But learn about intent. Know and understand this stuff. Next question.
Okay, hold on. Well, I was just going to jump in and say, you know, what you're essentially revealing, you know, by all of the art that's going on here. This art was perfected over thousands of years. This is the merchant law, which is not law, you know, that you're conveying here, and all of the fine technology. I mean, this isn't one man's genius. This is the genius of hundreds of thousands of years of technology. It's archaic. It's ancient. The laws and the rules they're using and the trickery is an ancient art. This is genius. They're perfect, you know, because they've been doing it for so long.
Right.
Anyway, we got looks like Peggy or Danny, and where are you out there in 325 area code?
Yeah, it's Danny in Texas.
Hi, Danny. Good to have you.
Good to be here. Back on the label on the 1040, if you're a regular filer, I haven't been, so I don't know if they're still doing it or not. Don't they send a packet and it has the label on there for you to peel off and put on the 1040 form?
Right.
Volunteer for everything.
Yep.
Real slick, aren't they?
Yeah, due to our own ignorance, yeah. we need to start looking at it as being a trust, start creating the record that it is a trust, and then their debtor creditor contract stuff won't stand.
Well, I'm thinking too that we should be filing a 1041 if we're going to file. Is the trust form.
Trust form, yeah, could be.
But we best have the trust in place before we do that, or we're going to get in trouble there.
Well, really, the trust already is in place, but they've been hiding that, so. Could be the trust 62 is in Puerto Rico. The IRS, really, maybe we should be claiming that trust.
Yeah, I guess it's something we're going to have to pin down.
Yeah, there's many trusts out there that we keep creating, and there's probably a heap of them in our suitcases, and we don't even know that we're carrying them around as baggage.
Well, I know from experience, they want you to sign the 1040 form real bad, because in going to summons, I've been to several, and that's the first thing they always do is slide the 1040 form out there for you to sign, and they'll do everything else. You'll just sign it. But now also they will do a substitute of return if you don't sign it. So they'll make you the trustee themselves if you don't.
Yeah, probably you signed before as trustee, you didn't know it, and that's how they can probably get away with that.
Yeah, I think if you never filed a 1040, then you'd never hear anything from the IRS, because that's how they get you recorded.
Right.
That's all I have. Somebody else can come on.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's see what we got down here. 714 area code. State your first name, where you calling from.
Hi, this is Dan from Orange County, California.
Yes. Hi, good to have you.
Good. Thanks for having me. Hi, Christian. How you doing? Hello.
Here.
Oh, okay. Other than an SS5.
Wait a minute, Dan. Christian's not here. Hang on.
Oh.
You're here. We got Danny from Texas, so we got to get everybody hit. I just muted you, but hit star one, everybody. And well, Christian just fell off the face of the earth again. Okay, Dan, just you want to hold that thought for a minute, and we'll just go to musical interlude and give Christian a chance. This gives everyone a 2-minute break. Okay, if you need to use the restroom or whatever, we'll be right back with Money Banking and Trust by Moving to California.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah, I got no problem, Jim. Hey, how you doing?
Good. I have a couple quick questions here. Other than an SS5, is there any other way that you know of to prove grantorship?
That seems to be the easiest one that comes to my mind. If there's anybody else that's got any, do an administrative process on them and present it to them, and if they just fell silent, then you could get them under a tacit agreement.
Right. Well, because I walked into the Social Security office, and I signed by grantor on the signature line with my autograph, and the lady's like refusing to take it because she says you can't alter the signature line like that. And I said, well, I'm the grantor of this trust, and it's my right and duty to express it as such. And but you got a $10 an hour ignorant person there, and they're just doing what the computer says. So I was just wondering if there's a way to should I send an attorney, or could I send it as an administrative process to Baltimore to Social Security headquarters and see if I can get it done through their main office?
Yeah, you could do any places, as long as you can get it there. 1-202, as long as you've done it, they've had notification whether they understand it or not.
Right. Well, California is notorious for this. Our county recorders out here are ridiculous. Nobody wants to record anything. that doesn't fall into their particular format, and it's just a tougher state to work with out here from my experience. So.
Your problem there would be that they're probably not going to send out the beneficiary card, which you need.
Right. Because in their instructions, it says on the SS5, if you alter the signature line, we may not process it, but may means must. So it looks like they're shutting it down over here, at least at my local office.
Yeah, but how do they know what the signature line is modifying? How are you modifying the signature line?
Well, that's exactly it. I'm signing by grantor in my signature. So.
The claim says that anything could be my signature, anything whatever my mark is.
That's what I was just going to say, Christian. That he should claim that is his signature, and she can't give legal advice. She'd be committing a crime.
Well, that's what I told her. I said my signature could be two X's and a happy face. I mean, what does it matter? And I got a Filipino lady that speaks 3 words of English. So I'm just like,
comes back down to your intent.
Right.
What was your intent?
To prove grantorship, so I can come back and express the trust in the mortgage case, and
what we're talking about here, it's just like hold it right there. This is a perfect example of what we've been talking about. You need to create a record, even though they didn't know or understand what was being done. The fact that it was presented, say,
right,
had notice, is the demonstration of your intent. That is the record.
Ah, okay. Well, intent satisfies one of the 4 trust components. So,
right.
Okay. All right. Well, then I could come back with a couple of witnesses and a notary, and make it official.
Yeah, we have to really understand trust basics more. We have to think about trust basics. Do we have the intent? Do we have the purpose? Do we have the parties? Do we have the specific trust res? And are we doing one of the methods of formation? Do we have a declaration, a transfer, an appointment, or a contract?
Right.
Or under the number 2 transfer, are the other 4 there? Are they A, endorsement? Is there a delivery? Is there a assignment? Is there one by operation of law under D?
So I'm applying those principles constantly in everything, even if it's an interaction with a state government employee, right? I'm always using those.
Especially now.
Right. Okay.
Any agent, I would be highly aware of what type of relationship are we forming here, and I'm going to be forming a trust.
Right.
Because I know how to form a trust. I'm going to make sure I'm going to make sure my intent is there. I'm going to make sure my purpose is there. And I'm going to make sure that I got all the parties identified, grantor, trustee, and beneficiary. And then I'm going to make sure that whatever they're writing is going to be the offer, or whatever I'm doing, that's going to be the specific trust res. And I'm going to be declaring something, or I'm going to be transferring something, either in a delivery or an assignment form, or D, by operation of law by the notary.
Okay. So I
want to get a trust relationship formed here. And it's not going to be through to the contract or debtor-creditor. Or they're not going to get a chance to construe me as trustee instead of beneficiary.
So I could treat the actual SS5 application as trust res. I can make her the trustee, and I can make a declaration that I am hereby handing over this trust property to the trustee. And basically formed a trust with that interaction right there and then, right?
Correct.
Okay.
You got to have a record, prove the act of it, and then that doesn't make it whether they knew or understood, because you got a record that proves their intent.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And also, I'm currently being sued by a credit card company for unjust enrichment, ironically enough. And also, I guess the question is, I want to use the same trust principles in dealing with this. Instead of coming into court as a debtor-creditor, I'm obviously being construed here as a trustee in breach of fiduciary duties by a credit card company. under a cause of action of unjust enrichment. Now, could I just take the account and claim it on the UCC1 and then transfer it over to the bank and terminate this thing?
Well, you could either claim it and get the trustee to reappoint the trustees, and then get the trustee to do his duty, merge the titles and terminate the trust. One of the two ways.
Because I've already tendered payment on this thing through an administrative process, and it got completely ignored. And some attorney sent me a summons the other day for unjust enrichment, which I thought was hilarious. But
the summons quashed?
What's that?
Did you get the summons quashed?
No, I just got it. So I got it right before Christmas. Right on New Year's Eve. So come Monday, I'm going to answer this thing. I'm going to file a motion to dismiss. And it's
grounds. What grounds?
Wrong jurisdiction. They're coming at me from Superior Court, but this falls under a small claims. It's $5,000 and some change. So it's. I'm thinking I can maybe do it on a jurisdictional basis.
I do. I would jam them up and do a discovery on them and ask them produce the insurance contract that backed up the whole thing.
The insurance contract?
Yeah. They've got an insurance contract. If you don't make the payment, they collect on insurance. Now, who's doing the unjust enrichment?
Okay.
They are. Insurance, they got paid, and now they're trying to collect from you again. And then you got an unjust enrichment. No, I'm afraid it's not that at all.
How many times am I going to fund this thing, for crying out loud? So, yes, okay.
Fine.
I'm done signing. I'm through with that. So, at least an unrestricted signatures. Okay. So should I answer the summons or basically deny all the counts and then push for a motion for discovery and basically put them on
the original contracts?
Well, as plaintiffs, they have the burden to prove this, so I can just deny all their allegations and push it into the discovery.
You don't have a burden of proof until you come up with some presumptions that shift the burden back on them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where everybody's got a misconception that they got to prove it up. No, they don't have to prove up nothing. They got prima facie case right off the bat. They got somebody in there with an affidavit that says you owe me money. Period.
Oh, they got me.
That alone.
They're all the causes of all the elements of their cause of actions are there.
Yeah, you got to rebut it first with some counter evidence and with a counterclaim, and then make them prove it up. Then, because then the bandy shifts back on them. The onus probandi shifts back on them once you've met the presumption.
So an affirmative defense here then would be a counterclaim and a discovery for their insurance contract, motion to discover.
Yes, probably that would take care of the public side, and then I would come in with the trust on the private side.
Okay. Okay. I'm just writing notes here.
And then your colorable way on the public side is going to give them a way out to save face and bow out gracefully.
Okay. All right. Now, on something like this, is it possible to change the venue to small claims, which would eliminate their ability to have some out-of-state attorney come at me with this thing?
Well, like you said, why don't you just challenge jurisdiction anyway, right down in there on that, what you said.
Right, okay.
Now, do they have capacity? Do they have agency? Do they have standing? Are they the real party in interest?
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure they've securitized the credit card agreement a long time ago, so I think I should have the right to ask.
Well, you didn't express it as being a trust and didn't put it in special deposit, so.
Right. Now, is that something I could come back and re-express and say that wasn't my intention and I want it back?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, well, thanks for your help, Christian. Appreciate it. All right.
Hey, Dan out there in California. We got area code 212. State your first name. Where are you calling from, please?
How you doing, Desert and Christian?
Hey.
First name. Where are you calling from?
Oh no, this is Harold from New York.
Hi, Harold. Good to have you.
Okay. Christian, what he might want to also consider, being that he just got that summons, and based on his position, he may want to do a return of process. Don't even accept it. Remember, that was an offer, a presentment. If he takes it out after the 72 hours, then he accepts it with intent to retain. But if he gives it back before that 72-hour period, he doesn't accept their offer. They can't proceed.
Yeah, like that, probably just ratification of commencement rules 17 and federal rules, yeah.
I've used it before, so I know it works. That doesn't mean it won't come back later on, but it stops it at that juncture.
Within the 72 hours, yeah.
Yeah, within the 72-hour period. I mean, I did one back in April of last year on a foreclosure. Haven't heard a word from him since. Everything they give us in commerce is presentments and offers.
Yeah.
And it's up to us whether we want to accept them or not. Because if he claims that he doesn't owe anything, he doesn't have to accept that presentment.
Yeah, then if they did come back in, they could go for a debt validation, and you could go from there, yeah. That could be the first thing to try. And just go away, stay away.
Okay, that's all for now.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Anybody else out there?
Hit star 1 and star 5, Harold, if you would. And, okay, we've got area code. By the way, just want to mention we do have the Forbidden History series coming up in a little while after Money, Banking, and Trust with Christian. And we're going to have a special presentation on the occult nature of the world and symbolism and occult words. So stay tuned for the broadcast, okay? Area code 617, state your first name. Where are you calling from?
I'm Dennis from Massachusetts.
Good to have you, Dennis.
Good.
I had a question for Christian. I was wondering if I could scan and send Christian a document.
What is it, a particular thing that you're dealing with?
Yeah, it's a one-page, it's an assignment. And the odd thing about it is the attorney bringing the foreclosure action is listed as the Assistant Secretary and Vice President of MERS.
Mm-hmm.
So I was wondering if you could look it over and give me a little bit of insight on that document.
Is that on a summary judgment?
No, but on a foreclosure. It was recorded in the Registry of Deeds.
Yeah, but are they putting in a motion for summary judgment, and this is the is the attorney affidavit in there for costs involved and?
No, it's just this one assignment in the Registry of Deeds. I'm in a non-judicial state.
Okay, a non-judicial state.
All you have to do here in this state is petition the land court to foreclose, and that's it.
Yeah, well, you're pretty much stuck without coming in after with an independent action and suing them, and then putting in some kind of an injunction to stop the proceedings until you can have your hearing in court, because you need to challenge the assignment.
Yeah, I just find it curious. All that the lawyer bringing the foreclosure is actually listed as the Assistant Secretary and Vice President of MERS.
Yeah, well, you need to come through court through an action, your own independent action. Countersue them.
Okay.
You need an injunction to stop the proceedings until this case is heard.
Aye.
You stay. So,
Okay, thank you.
and now I go in for the discovery, and they can produce the originals, the assignments, the assignment trail, the chain of the trail that proves that they have an assignment. Also, is the original complaint in the party's name, who the original note or the contract is made out to. If they're not, then how do you know that they're the right party? So challenge agency, capacity, real party and interest.
Right.
But the only way to get it stopped is to come at them with a counter case. You got to sue them in court, or else they'll
Right.
proceed. You would,
They absolutely will.
Okay, does that have anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Cheryl has to add to that. He might.
Well, you saw.
Another question?
Yeah, but we got another one here. And Dennis, if you would, go ahead and just hit star 1. That'll meet you out, and star 5. That'll drop your hand. We got 616 area code. State your first name. Where are you calling from, please? Oh, no, that's 661. Area code, state your first name. Where are you calling from? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. What's your name?
Okay, we're going to put you back. Yeah, what's your first name? Where are you calling from? Okay, we're going to get you back out. Now we're going to take the next caller. That's 301 area code. State your first name. Where are you calling from, please?
Hey, Eddie, how you doing?
Hey, state your first name. Where are you calling from, please?
Andrew.
Where are you calling from, Andrew?
Maryland. Oh, down in
Okay,
Maryland.
good to have you.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question on something. Like on your 1041.
Yeah, speak up, Andrew.
Yeah. On the 1041. I wonder, after I was before on the 1041, and I had already received a check from the Internal Revenue, and I got the check from the Internal Revenue, and then I had the agents who come to the house, and they had locked me up because it said it was false fictitious claim under Title 18, Section 287. And I had on there where I was the trustee of the 1041, and I was just wondering how in the world could they do that, So they said, they took me to court and they said that there was no trust. That I made it up, so they locked me up. So I was just trying to figure out what was wrong.
To drive Mack trucks through. That was the opening that you needed to prove the trust. And the only way you're going to prove the trust is if you had the records to prove that it is a trust.
Right.
That was the opening right on the silver platter for you to present your case.
Oh, okay.
And proved it by the records. You would have proved a trust, that it was your claim that it was a trust.
Right. Okay, now the check that they already sent me, could you refile and get it back or something like that, or by reestablishing the trust?
How did you endorse the check?
You said, how did I endorse it?
Yes, how did you endorse it?
Well, I never got the chance to endorse it. They locked me up before you can endorse it. They took the check. Yeah, they
at all?
I didn't have a chance to even transfer anything.
Did you receive the check?
Yeah, I received it, right.
So you didn't get a chance to deposit or negotiate it?
Nope, you didn't have a chance to do anything. So that's what I was just, that seemed kind of funny, That's what I was trying to figure out. But I'm gonna check into it and read you had a book, I think you said something on the trust. and then I could figure out what I did wrong or what went wrong or something like that.
Yeah, because if they would have said there's no trust here, that you need to come in with a proof that there is.
Yeah, they said there's no trust and all that stuff, and a whole lot of junk they made up in the federal court. So what's the name of that book that you said it was on trust? Was it some kind of trust? You was talking about it on there once before.
Gilbert Law Summaries?
Yeah, okay, that's one. Okay.
Gilbert Law Summaries is called Trust.
Oh, okay.
By
okay, then.
Albeck Jr.
All right, thanks a lot, then. I'm going to see if I can get that book and follow up on it.
Yeah, it's about $30, less than $30.
Okay. Look, I can get it from on the
Barnes and Nobles. Any bookstore can order it. Go to a law bookstore. They can probably have it on the shelf.
Oh, okay.
Law universities.
Yep, it's law summer. Okay, then I'll do that then. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this book is that law course that they were teaching at a university. So.
Yeah, it looks like we've got, maybe Harold's doing a follow-up to Howard. Harold in New York. Yeah, that Gilbert, he can get that off of Amazon, too, and get it in 2 days. That's how I got it. I got it off of Amazon.
Did it come through with the 2008 version?
Yeah.
Did it come through that way?
Okay.
Okay, great. And make sure you get the 2008 or newer version.
Okay, thank you, Harold. Hit star 5 and star 1. That mutes you back out, Harold, please. And, okay, we got 409 area code. State your first name. Where are you calling from?
Good evening. This is Dave from Florida.
I was wondering where you...
Well, thank you, Christian. Thank you, Desert. After the wedding, I had to take off 6 days, and then I just worked nonstop once I got back. So I missed your program, but I heard all the recordings since, and they're fabulous.
How you been, Dave?
I've been doing great. I'd just like to encourage all the readers or listeners out there that you absolutely have to have that trust book, or you're just going to be lost. I didn't really get to read it until I got on the plane, and I read it all the way down and all the way coming back. If it wasn't for your cheat sheet, I would have been lost in the book. But thankfully, you pointed out just exactly what we need to have that foundation. Now, I have 2 questions. One is for Harold concerning the return of process. In other words, he's talking about actually giving you a summons, whereas if you had only accepted a certified letter from the attorneys, it turned out to be the trustees. It's the first time to communicate to you. That's not accepting their offer, or is it?
As a trust, no.
Okay.
Well, there is an acceptance for value and return for value, and that's in that trust book on page, let's see. I liken it to that accept for value. That's in section 441 under the lienability of beneficiary's interests, and in particular section 442 where transferee's rights, talk about that. That's likened to the accept for value and return for value right there. And that's what you're doing on a trust basis.
Okay, so if you went ahead and answered their so-called letter, because they said they come out and say they're collecting a debt, and so I handled that.
Yeah, that's being construed under a debtor-creditor because you didn't express the trust.
Okay. Well, we just haven't expressed it to them. We've already covered all those bases. We just haven't got over that to that point yet. But I was just thinking, just to buy a lot more time, when they do finally present the summons, because they've already filed in the court for an application. Now, in Texas, this is a Texas case, they have to go to court one way or the other. And the easiest way for them is an expedited foreclosure where no factions are at issue. It's called a 736 hearing, and they filed that. Now, we didn't get notice of that yet. I mean, they noticed us, but we haven't picked it up. So I'm wondering if that you refuse, or do you wait for a summons?
I'm not exactly sure if I understand. Is they're doing a hearing, or what do you say, 736?
Yes, sir. It's called a 736 hearing. It's just an application to conduct a foreclosure sale because there are no material fact at issue. That's the typical reason they created that 736, so that they could handle these kind of cases that are not contested.
Okay, in Florida here, under Florida rules, is stating that interrogatories are a basis for setting up controversies. As long as there's one controverted fact, the case must be heard and go to trial.
Right. And I think this would work the same way, but if you don't answer at all, then the presumption is it's uncontested and there's no material fact at issue.
Yes, you're dead then.
Right. Well, yeah, we haven't. We've only got the letter.
We're going to have to come in with some kind of controverted fact, and an interrogatory under discovery is the device or the mechanism you must use that is going to prove that there's one fact or more in dispute.
Right. Okay. Now, to move on to what you were commenting earlier about the guy who about the insurance. You're presuming, I guess, that they have an insurance policy in the mortgage case. Did you offer any proof of that, or do you just have to presume it like they do and expect them to prove that there isn't?
Well, I'd have to set up a presumption through, say, an interrogatory or admission that there was insurance on that. So now it's one fact that's going to rebut that, and then I could use that for a discovery wedge to go in and say, okay, now who was the beneficiary on the insurance policy, and was it paid, and was the funds distributed, who got the funds, and everything else, and start digging right in there. Dig that little crack in the wall into a wide opening so you can walk through it.
But it seems like that you're getting the cart before the horse unless you go from the very beginning and presume that they don't even have standing, that they're not even an owner or a holder in due course. You would want to cover those first, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's my first line of defense, to prove jurisdiction that they don't have it because they don't have the real party in interest or they don't have standing.
Oh, great. Well, I'm thinking that in the little state court, they're going to give them whatever they want. So I'm looking at moving it to federal court and do it on I think under the federal rules, you present all your evidence all at once. They have to come in and rebut all that. Anyway, I just want to know about the insurance, how you handle that. You don't prove anything, you just ask them to admit or deny that there was insurance on there.
Yeah, and then I would start digging from there if they admitted that there was.
Well, listen, I'm glad to be back. I'm sorry I missed the last 3 calls, live calls that is. I was there when the spirit goes. And I didn't get any message about the workshop yet.
You or anybody else. That's bad.
I'm glad I didn't miss. All right, I'm going to mute out. I appreciate it, Christian. Wonderful. Right. I love your program. Thank you so much. Thank you, Desert.
All right, thank you. And next caller. See, we got, looks like Rhonda again back in Missouri. Rhonda, your turn.
Hello.
Rhonda?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Yeah, I was just going to say on the gentleman that was talking earlier that said he went in and, started talking about the trust and they said that none exists. Really wasn't the judge doing the right thing in protecting the trust? Because if he was trying to disclose it out on the public side, isn't that a problem?
Yeah, that could be both ways. That reasoning could be both ways, yeah. You may be trying to protect the trust and keep it private, but then that's the open. You need to say it is a trust, and then when we start talking about the trust, and that's CCI information, and we should have a protective order put on this, and then in-camera review for the evidence to support that.
Right. That was my only point.
Any other questions?
Yeah, we have, let's see here. By the way, we're getting background there. Rhonda and Harold, hit star 5 and star 1, it'll mute you. Thank you. And Frank in Florida.
Oh boy, kind of lost there with everything else that was going on. Can we get a protective order on our named trust?
You order on what again?
Our named trust.
Yeah, because it's really a private, secret information, and it all has to be protected. So yeah, protective order.
And what's something else that we can, besides the protective order, along those lines?
ECI information, but then the causes of action to come at them would be the way to go. Those are see what page is that on? Down here, 67. 65, page 65, under section 227, which is trust purposes. So here we are talking about purpose. And through those forward sections following, fraudulent transfer would be one cause of action, unfair business practices, unclean hands, and unjust enrichment. And then the big one, which I saved for last, was antitrust. Antitrust because they're impeding or they have a monopoly on commerce by a lack of economic competition that they're causing, because you're a disadvantaged person because you don't have the knowledge and the skill level that they do.
Are those all in are those all in, you're talking about the Joberts now?
Yeah, all except for the antitrust. I came up with them from digging through this and kind of drew that out through deduction. It was talking about the impermissible trust purposes under section 227. And the next section was fraud on the creditors. And I kept on saying, well, how about fraud on the other parties, not just creditors? How about trustee or grantor? So I kind of reversed that.
Right. Could you go through that list one more time slowly?
Yeah, fraudulent transfer.
Yep.
Unclean hands.
Right.
Unjust enrichment.
Yep.
Unfair business practice. Now that leads up into the antitrust as the big one. And really that is your CCI information, which is CCI/trust, which is on page, I think it's 94. Which is section 336, which is abuse of confidential relationship. And confidential relationship is trust relationship. And confidential relationship is just like any other CCI information which needs to be protected. There's, say, a wife-husband relationship or a client-attorney privileged information relationship. So all these are protected. They're all CCI information. So it's really trust. And trust is really CCI. It needs to be protected. And then if they are coming against your trust, they're really against the trust, and that means antitrust. They're coming at you with, in an antitrust, a monopoly, monopolizing because they have better advantage than you do. And they're impeding commerce.
And obstructing trade.
That's what it's all about, that's antitrust. That's a big stick. And then that brings in criminality. So that would be causes of actions to come at them any other questions?
No, I think I'm all right. I'll come back on.
Dan in California, go ahead.
Oh, I hit that on accident earlier.
This is
You
Harold.
have a question?
This is Harold.
You got Harold?
Yes.
Go ahead, Harold.
Okay, I just want to make some clarification on that return to process before you sign off. First of all, with return to process, the original documents, envelopes, and everything that they send you is to be returned. That's a total rejection of the offer. Okay, if you contact Christian, I can send him the return to process package that I use, and then he can forward to that particular person in question. This is a process that's worked for me. But you don't keep anything that they send you. You have to return all the originals back to them. So you keep no certifieds, no nothing. Anything that you keep from them will be considered acceptance with intent to retain, which gives them jurisdiction over you. To divest them of jurisdiction, you don't accept anything. Actually, that's
72 hours.
Right, within 72 hours. And believe it or not, that is the most effective way to stay out of the clutches of the corporation. Remember, a corporation cannot do anything against you without your consent. And they trick us in so many ways, as you have opened up our eyes to, Christian. In so many ways do they trick us. But the easiest and most effective way to keep them from tricking you is don't accept their presentment. Now, if you're ready to go ahead, accept it and fight from that point forward, whether you use trust or debtor and creditor law, then you can go forward from there. But actually, there's a group down in Delaware. They've been doing this for years.
Okay, thanks, Harold. Appreciate it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, just want to mention before I go to the broadcast, I've been working on a dictionary for the past 3 days. It started out with my translation and the original thought on the original Gospel of Jesus Christ, which I've been reading on radio for 5 years now. I'm on my 18th read of the book. It is the original Gospel of Jesus Christ, 182 chapters. It's the best kept secret on earth. And so I started doing the translation based on the original thought, realizing what this was. It's totally synoptic with our received Gospels. And, you know, the occult took over all of our words. They took over all of our literature. They took it all over. It's all in the Vatican, 25 miles of book shelving, okay? And so in the process of starting the translation, I then started doing a support dictionary so you'd understand where these words come from in the original thought. And then I started doing a translation of the Gospel of Thomas from the Nag Hammadi Library, because I can see how weak these translations are. The Father opened my eyes to see words and symbols, word etymology, and I'm expert in these areas, as well as mythology and universal culture and religion, okay, and spirituality. That's been my life study. And so, anyway, what's happened over the last 3 days ultimately created the most profound dictionary in history. It is my dictionary that's up and coming right now, spliced in the middle of this book, which will be in its own book eventually, called The Real Da Vinci Code. The Da Vinci Code is just a titillation of propaganda and disinformation in order to keep the public at large in the dark and confused about what's really going on behind the scenes. So the Real Da Vinci Code is the unlocker. It is the ability to decode your own scriptures, the ability to decode all the occult nature of words within the legal world. It is for real. Okay? And right now it's virtually unsurpassed as an expose when you consider that it's mixing the spiritual, and the political, and the legal, and then the occult nature of words. Okay, I'll just give you a few examples, like the word idiot. The word idiot comes from Middle English. It means somebody who doesn't work for the government. Anyone who doesn't work for the government, they say is an idiot. Okay, it's in the dictionaries in the Middle English. Keats, 1888. Sports is diversion. Webster, 1828. But then there's the occult nature of words like presiding. It's not presiding, it's presiding. It's a slam dunk when you're in there. The prosecutor is pro-security. He's for the security. He's there to make the money for Wall Street, to get you on Wall Street. They want to know if you want to represent yourself, but they really ask you, did you want to represent yourself? Represent yourself as a fiction. The handbook for Roman civil law, 1933, says if you want to create a security, which is the birth certificate, they said the first thing you need is a hostage. Okay? So I revealed the occult nature of just endless words like that, but then there's the religious words and there's occult words there as well. So I got it, okay? And it's going to continue to expand, but for any size donation to help support the network, any size, at PayPal, then just tell me you want it, and just send me an email, give me your Skype name, and I'll transfer the file for you. Or if you don't have Skype, I can email it to you. But then give me your contact information. I'll be glad to get it to you. Any size donation, and you're going to want to follow the work. You're probably going to want to get the next edition, in the next couple of weeks, because it's going to double in about 2 weeks. It'll be 2 or 3 times bigger than it is right now. But it's going to continue to expand and grow, and you can support the Peshitta Targum Restoration Project, bringing back the original thought within scriptures, as well as the dictionary, and also this radio network. And if you get yourself a conversation piece that you can print out and share with your friends. Okay, so I want to thank you for doing that. Now let's get to the broadcast right here. The Hidden Souls of Words, my all-time interview with Mary Gardner. Glad you tuned in. I hope you're telling your friends. If you got friends who aren't in words, you can call them right now. We got time. We're going to open with a song here. And I want to say a special thank you to Gerald McLaughlin at specialguest.com for their assistance in providing us with some wonderful interviews on our network. And now tonight we have Mary Gardner, the Hidden Soul of Words. Mary, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, and I'm very impressed with what you're doing, bringing out the truth. This is so important. It's a miracle.
Well, thank you. And we're grassroots all the way. I have to tell you, we're I've had a saying. They've got all the money, we don't have any money, but we do get the job done on a song, a wing, and a prayer. If we didn't have the wonderful sponsors that we have, we couldn't do it. I certainly can't take credit for what we have here. Have you seen our radio network, Mary?
I have not, and I'm looking forward to it. I very much want to, and I'm very much in tune with what you're doing.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, it is the Real publicradio.net. We actually have the number one radio network in the world on the internet as far as quality of looks go. We have a radio network that is unmatched within the internet. Everyone seems to be advertising, trying to sell you something, flashing something in your face as soon as you get there. When you go to ours, you'll find basically a photo gallery, and it's an informational highway. We bring in a lot of hard information, and for a lot of people, it probably break their paradigm and crush their rose-colored glasses. But at the same time, we try to bring something in our radio network that will help them feel good as well. We bring a lot of other wonderful quality and wonderful discoveries as well. That's
something I've been doing now for, all of my life. I've been a researcher and a historian as well, and I'm a symbologist and etymologist, and also a mythologist. Ma'am?
Yes, this is what I have heard about you and about what you're doing on the Internet, and I think it's just fantastic.
Well, wait a minute. Are you saying Gerald was bragging on me? Well, no matter what, I've known Gerald now for about 5 years, and he got me on some programming at a time when I needed some exposure myself. But every time you think you've heard it all, then you hear something else, and you're totally blown away by it. And so I'm never surprised. But Mary, I had not heard of you, and how long? Tell us about yourself and when you published your book and about that, please.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Yes, my book is The Hidden Souls of Words, and I published the book, now it's been 4 years ago. Well,
okay.
And so it's been around for a while, but as my publisher said, it's a book that will be around for a very long time because it has sort of lasting meaning. It's not just something that you would just read and put aside. It's something you come back to and read again and again. I even have to myself to be reminded of the hidden souls of some of the words that we use every day that we take for granted, that we don't realize that in their original meaning, they may have meant something else. And over time, that meaning has changed, and as it has changed, it has also had a great influence on our world and on our society, and just the way we treat one another in our world.
Sure. Now, Mary, before we get into the meat of it, can we back up and who are you? How did you get into all this? Anyway, did you stumble on something and you tripped and fell flat on your face on the ground and you discovered a truth and you woke up and you came back with a vision, or how did this all start?
Well, this is a very good question. Words, of course, have been interesting to me all of my life, my background. I have degrees. I've studied forever and ever.
Oh, yeah. And Mary, I just want to ask you, please, if you could breathe deep and get close to that mic and speak up. I'm trying to boost your audio, but you're still low.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
There you go. Thank you. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Yes, I've pursued many avenues of study over time. I studied religion and theology, clinical psychology, and international law. And my big desire was to discover the truth. And looking for the truth is what I've been doing for a very long time. And it sounds like we're very in a sympathetic mode here because you're uncovering it.
Oh, absolutely. Now, but when you say the truth, I mean, that's a general statement. So the truth about life, about everything in general?
Yes. Truth just in general. Why are we here? What is going on? And what's going on in our society? And how our words affected us. And I worked in arms control and disarmament, and the words became very, very important there. And I, of course, was extremely aware that every word we put into an agreement might affect the whole world. So it was, quite a discovery for me. But I was inspired. This really inspiration came. I had a near-death experience of my own, and at one point my son was disabled from a drunk driver. But deep within me, I've always known that we possess this great creative ability, and that this is a gift that we hold in common with everyone everywhere. Yet many of us have forgotten we possess this power that's within us, and so many before us had forgotten it too. And so we are responsible for how we use our power and how we use our words. I first started writing when I began to realize more and more what widespread confusion there is concerning the interpretation of many words. And it's caused our lives to move in many troubled directions. And in turn, we've experienced a lot of difficulties, even includes war, which we've had going on constantly since World War II. Some places always in the world.
Well, Mary, I don't think that's by accident to you. I think it's by design.
No, I agree. I agree with you thoroughly. And it's in large part to go to the meaning of words and our freedom, that how we've distorted them over time, and certain people who are influential have distorted. It's become our legacy and sort of the basis of our planetary history, both the ancient history and modern. But no matter how language is interpreted over time, the original meaning is still the same. It's just the further away we get from that, the less we understand it. So I was trying to gain more insight into my own life, about my relationships with other people, with God, for my own personal guidance. But from early childhood, I've always carried questions about the deeper meaning of things, and especially the meaning of words. I wanted to get beyond just the etymology to their origination and the purpose, why we created these in the beginning, and what thoughts and emotions were we really trying to express. So I felt that they have these profound, dynamic, spiritual roots, and so that's why I call them the souls of them, the power. I think that is the power, the soul of them.
Right. Well, let me go right there, okay? Because I'm right on page with you there, Mary. Because you remember the quote by Kipling? You remember what he said?
Can you tell remind me?
Kipling said, "East is east and west is west, and never the twain shall meet." Right.
Right.
And then of course, now my question is, was he pulling our leg? Did he know something we didn't know, or was he just absolutely wrong? Because now I say on my radio network, I'm sorry, Kipling, sorry, because on my radio program, East and West come together, because what the Heavenly Father has revealed for me, Mary, is the connection between our modern Western corrupt diction and our original roots within the Eastern universe from the East. Because I defined a term in that when I bring East and West together, and that is what I'm attempting to do within my study and my presentation is to get back to what you're talking about, and that is what I call the original thought. Have you heard that terminology?
Right.
Yeah. And the original thought, in other words, like, what were they saying back then? They weren't using the word Lord, or they weren't using the word God, or they weren't using, the words that we use in our modern time. And so we got to go back. But then when we go back, we know that we couldn't understand it if we were speaking Aramaic or Hebrew or Sanskrit or whatever. And so then we got to take what they meant when they said it, and then bring it back forward into our modern time. And basically, what you're going to have is something that is based upon metaphor and image in nature, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, please continue. I can't help myself but jump in. I'm loving.
No, I'm happy that you are, and I agree with you. Well, you see, because they have. I was saying, the words that have the souls, the power, the roots, and you're talking about getting back to that. And the souls, though, that are inherent within the words are part of, I think, the creative impulse that's embedded in the divine origin of everything. There's this creativity that's embedded in the origin. And this truth I think, has been overlooked by many of us. And we just simply aren't aware of our creative powers. And the ancient origin and mystery has become shrouded or hidden from us. If you change the meaning of a word, you change the intention that was there. And the intention was to assist us in maintaining our connection with this great source with one another, and also with one another. The connection was there from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And even in the word, I discovered, the word itself, it means divine logos, the universal intelligence or the active word of God. And the evidence is that all of our words are divinely inspired. They emanate from this intelligence and from the freedom we've been given that's inherent in the use of that intelligence. So these words were created by those who came before us to keep us connected. But what's happening is that we are feeling more and more separated. And this separation is tripping us up. But good and wise teachers have understood this for a long time.
From the beginning, perhaps, knowing what's going on behind the scenes, and to go further, a point you were just making a little bit, about the, I have a quote here by Noah. I can't even paraphrase what you said a little bit ago, but Noah Webster in 1828 said, "There is a primary sense for every word, from which all others have proceeded. And whenever this can be discovered, this primary sense should then stand first in order."
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'd love to have that quote. That's fantastic. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll try to get it in an email to you.
That would be great. Yeah. Terrorists don't use words. They kill people to give themselves power. But language is the words are symbols. There's nothing wrong with what you think, but do you understand what you're saying? They're trying to control by fear and by really acting out. But words have influenced them in some way. Somehow they have been influenced by words. So,
well, yeah. And we all have. And,
yeah.
In fact, whoever controls the words controls your thinking.
And Noam Chomsky, I can't pronounce his last name.
Noam Chomsky?
Chomsky, I'm sorry. I never do pronounce his name right. But he has written a great deal about language, as you know. And he discovered that there is a universal grammar that's programmed into the human brain. And this grammar is of all spoken languages. And they're all the same, the grammar. And I found that quite revealing, how we're connected, how we're so connected.
The way I say it is there's a common thread. And that's the thing that has allowed me to get to where I am within my insight into what I call diction, because I didn't have to become an expert in Hebrew. I didn't have to become expert in French or German or anything. And what I've done, I had a dictionary of every European language on my desk, or every tongue, European tongue, and therefore I compared, and I found the common thread, and I found the manipulation of man, his own engineering within our modern diction, whether it was French or German or Yiddish or Hebrew or Spanish, that there you can see, if you can follow the trail back through time, if you go through the dictionaries and the words and find their common thread. There's also a term called Noshatar associate, which means that which is above and that which is below, like in a dictionary, is definitely related to each other. And you can look at how the word evolves just in an alphabetical order as well. But our diction has totally been manipulated, and actually I found out where they did it too. I don't know if you had heard this one, Mary, but
tell me about it.
I read it in a book called The Secret Archives of the Vatican. And just before I get to that, just a little bit of trivia. Do you know how many miles of book shelving they have in the Vatican?
No, I don't.
You ready?
Mm.
You ready?
Yes.
25 miles.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's shelving. That doesn't count putting books back to back. So,
Wow.
yeah, they got all the books. I think they got the Alexandrian Library. I don't think it burned. I think it's in the Vatican. That's my view. But listen, when I read the book, The Secret Archives of the Vatican, in there, it said that, you see, I knew they engineered our words. I didn't know, where. I just knew they did. And I figured, it's probably in Rome. The Roman state finally, seemed to have conquered the world, and they used the British Empire as their front office to do what they're bidding. And but
right.
outside of the Vatican, I found out where they, I don't know if you've seen this. Have you noticed that the words are like compressed, and that these compressions within our modern words can be expanded into more broader components, as if to say they were abbreviated? Have you ever noticed that?
Yes.
Okay. I did absolutely. I knew that, like, the ST is a root form of the word star. And, so if you get the picture all of a sudden when you recognize that that's the primary root for star and all these other roots. And so I could see the broader components of words that combined words were really many words within one word, 3 or 4 words. And so then I'm reading in the Secret Archives of the Vatican, and there I make, my discovery of what I already recognized to be true. I was already telling my friends, hey, they're abbreviating the words. They're literally compressing them and taking parts out, and so we don't have the complete picture. And then I find out where they do it, and it's outside the Vatican at a place called, get ready for this, the College of Abbreviators.
Oh, my goodness. Yes.
Yes, run by the Jesuits, who are called the Curii, and I guess it means that they're going to put the cure in your eye.
Well, I have heard of that. I didn't know all the details, but I'm glad to know that you've been studying this. It's really important.
Well, what happened? What happened to me is, just so you know, Mary, when I was 22 years old, I saw how inferior I was in my own existence, before my Maker, and I wanted to, touch the, I have a vision. I wanted to, be connected with my Maker, and I was living in San Diego, and I knew that the tallest peak in the contiguous United States was about 300 miles north in Central California, called Mount Whitney. And so I went on a 3-day pilgrimage and walked, and if somebody offered me a ride, I'd take it, but I wasn't going to hitchhike, didn't take any money, just took my Bible with me, and then went on a pilgrimage, and people offered me rides, food, money, it was really amazing. And then I got up to the mountain, I climbed to the top, 14,500 feet, and when I came off the mountain, I didn't have any vision up there, I didn't have no lightning strike or nothing, but when I came off the mountain, the top of the world, I could see Yosemite from up there, 14,500 feet. And when I came off, and I went back to San Diego, my view of the world changed. And all of a sudden I could see into the words that they had root forms. And that was the thing that, then led me down the trail. That's when it all started, when I was 22.
Wow, that's a wonderful story. What a great enlightenment for you that happened. Yes.
And the rest is history. But well, please continue.
Well, I've continued this. I continued this study, and I included a number of words in the book. Of course, it's a limited number because there's so many. There are many, many words. But I read recently that when I was talking about the word "word" and how we were really meant to know that the intention was to keep us connected with our source and one another. Because today, some uses of words separate us. They cause us to feel separated. I read recently that science may have just begun to uncover what many of us have already have been experiencing, this universal intelligence that is both a part of us but also beyond us.
Okay, now hold that thought.
Yeah.
Hold that thought right there. We just have to do an identification at the top. Mary, please continue on your thoughts.
Thank you. I was just, I think at that point where I was saying about science and what had just uncovered just recently, and some researchers are saying that this legendary particle that scientists refer to as actually the God particle. Physicists have been searching for this, and they thought it might explain the basic question of why matter has mass, but that this now probably does not exist. And now a few scientists are beginning to consider the idea that what might be present is not a particle at all, but some sort of consciousness or intelligence. And that would mean that the universe does indeed, according to one of the scientists named Strieber, that the universe would have a creator or God, that the word was created. It was meaning universal intelligence. There must have been some comprehension then of a transcendence that's so much a part of who we are. But as humans, it's also beyond us. They're a universal medium of communication and relationship, and they include everyone everywhere. It's common in every field of endeavor. The words are so basic. And so I've tried to just embrace the foundations of all ideologies, really, and disciplines, and try to take into account all wisdom and truth wherever I could find it, whether it was scientific or secular or theological or what have you.
Well, we deal also here on our network with a lot of terms from the legal
yes.
end, and we found out that that's about the most wicked group out there is that legal world, because they literally every dictionary they write from the 1800s, the first edition of Black's Law Dictionary, every dictionary, they keep changing the meaning of words, and they're playing the trick on us, Mary.
Yes, I know that. It's very constant. And if you have noticed that so many of the laws have been changed, they're changing all the time, which means we're tricked, and we have to keep up with, changing things. There are people who do estate planning and all of that, that changes constantly. And our tax laws change constantly. The flat tax would put a lot of people out of business.
Yeah.
So
that's
we
true.
have to think of all the people who lose. The accountants, many lawyers, and the IRS.
We wouldn't have to deal with those guys. We wouldn't have to deal with those agents anymore, would we?
That's right. The whole. So one thing seems to sort of mold another, and I've been reading something recently about the power of premonition, and this is another subject, but it has to do with words and sense, because many scientists have realized that premonition suggests that we are linked with every other consciousness that's ever existed or will exist, that we're part of something so much larger than the individual self. And there's a physicist, his name is Bohm, David Bohm, I think, for example, who said that I believe he said that each person enfolds something of the spirit of the other in his consciousness. And then there's a Nobel physicist who believed that minds do not interact with one another like separate billiard balls or something, but in some sense they're united. And there's obviously only one alternative, the unification of minds or consciousness. There's only really one mind out there. By linking these minds across space and time, that's what happens with premonitions. They reveal this oneness that the scientists are talking about. They suggest that in some sense we are infinite or non-local in space and time. And it's just Joseph Campbell. You spoke about mythology.
He's one of my favorites.
Yeah, me too. He had such insight, and he talked about the transparent to the transcendent, being transparent to the transcendent, and the premonitions have gone unnoticed by those who regard them as just, little glimpses into the future. But the truth is, there's a mental component of the universe, and we're little pieces of this. And this larger, huge planetary social system, and we're so connected. So we're influenced all the time. And what you're saying is that you want to see the influence go in a direction where we know what is true, what we're being told, what is true, what is not true, and how we can evolve into a better world. Because, for instance, we have no laws against war. Even the UN Charter has no solutions for war. And this became, one of the things that led me to really want to go into the movement of peaceful negotiations. But the war consciousness pervades this planet. Through the domination of man, we've implanted this consciousness, and the mass thought is created by people who haven't been educated about their responsibilities, or even the fact that they have this creative power. Most people feel disempowered, that they don't have the power to change things. But the truth is that the grassroots is the only way things have changed for the better at any time in the United States, and certainly probably, I think, in the whole world. But if you look at the civil rights movement, that was grassroots. The women's suffrage was grassroots. And it never came from the leadership as such.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the war consciousness keeps us in this retarded condition, and it's just a pollution, I think, that pervades the very structure of the earth. We're hurting everything on the earth.
Sure.
And so we have to accept our responsibility of being the light of the world, and to be a joy in the world. Where there's joy, there's no way to kill. We can only give love if we're in that place of joy.
Well, that's a great perspective. I've not heard it put that way, but that sure makes sense.
Yes. And again, we just limit ourselves, and these negative vibrations, the higher vibrations will begin a massive healing of man as soon as we can take on this responsibility of changing from war to peace. And this fear, though, of war is everywhere, when we die with these emotions, the mass thought becomes powerful. Other people get caught in those vibrations. So I think changing that consciousness is time to accept this job. That we're not limited. We don't have really any limitations. We only use just one little part of our abilities, our brains. That's been proven by science. There's so much of us because we don't reach in for that universal intelligence that's there. So we can bring in, I think, a new era of peace, but it has to come in our hearts first, and then it will come out in nations. But I can talk to you about some of the words themselves if you
want
to, but
absolutely.
But I'm going on about this because I think it's so very important. You might have some perspective you want to bring out about that.
Oh, well, the words that come to mind are the conspiratorial view of history, because we have the received historical accounts that we've been handed through school, and then I see behind it all, of course, the unseen hand that is manipulating everything. And while in one sense the American people actually think that they're the freest people on earth in general, from my perspective and what I know today, I actually recognize that the American minds are the greatest slaves on the plantation that ever existed, and most people outside the U.S. and other countries recognize that.
Yes. Now, how did you come to discover this, and how are you finding that people are responding to this? Well,
when one of the things I did that you see, because I was into the ancient past, and I was hitting the books. I homeschooled. I had 2,000 books on the shelf. Like I said, I had all the dictionaries, and so I had a really a good perspective. But then when I in the early 90s, I discovered in our modern time that we were sold out. That these people in Washington and the controllers, the politicians, I knew they were always lying to us. I never voted for any of them. But then I actually stumbled upon the fact. Well, what happened was I got stuck inside of an 18-wheeler. I was doing chemical transport, hazardous material delivering in the Houston area around Texas. And I started listening to the talk radio because I didn't like the CB. And for a year, I listened to talk radio, 24 hours a day, late at night, early in the day. And I got to hear people saying things, and I kept hearing the same things over and over and over. And I realized that if people keep saying these things, you keep hearing them over and over, there's got to be some truth to it. And so I pursued all of that. And then I started meeting people who were researchers, political activists, and then I worked with a couple of them and doing radio. I was doing international shortwave radio with Bev Collins out of Canada. She had the Canadian Institute for Political Integrity. And then I was interviewing at the same time Ian Murphy from the Aussie Freedom Scouts in Australia. They had the Australian militia. He was friends of Brigadier General Sarong, the war general, just like our General MacArthur from World War II. And so I brought Bev and Ian on international shortwave, all three of us at the same time, and we compared nodes. We found out that everything that was happening in our countries all happened at the same time. Like this, when we got the Federal Reserve, 1913, 1933, it happened in the same years in Australia and Canada. So we compared notes and found out that the patterns were the same for each of our nation. So that was the kind of thing that helped us to piece pieces of the puzzle together. And then talking to Ian in Australia, people in Australia and other parts of the world, I would interview people who came to America from other countries, and I was doing surveys. And I found out that the people outside of America were generally more knowledgeable. And when they came to America, these foreigners, and they moved here to open a restaurant or some other thing, they said, they thought this was like Nazi Germany. They never saw such a police state in their country like in Greece or other parts of the world.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, we're a total police state, and people at the same time still think we're free. And we've got friends that have been beaten up, murdered, and in prison today because they stumbled on too much of the truth.
Well, yes.
Mary, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes. Yeah, you're a little low. Just speak up. Go ahead.
Yes. We have forgotten who we are, and that the grassroots has the power. Once they understand what is true, to overcome what is going on. But there has to be a mass consciousness in order to forestall what has happened over a long period of history. And this is coming about. I think it's coming about. I do see hope that people are learning what you're talking about.
Well, there is a, in my view, a type of renaissance or a higher consciousness that's like the cream. The cream is coming to the top. A great there's some very wonderful people out there who really care, and I work with them every day in my society, and we're sort of like, I have another saying when I open up some of my programs. I say, do you want the truth? Well, I don't know if you want the truth, but we're gonna give you the truth, and the truth is stranger than fiction, and yet the truth can set you free, but at the same time, it will make you a fugitive within your own land.
Yes.
Truth. It's dangerous to speak the truth when the liars are in control.
People don't realize that they're even liars. I think they're being controlled by something bigger, maybe. They're sort of puppets in the hands of something bigger. This is what I understand. But I think we need to look at the word love, for instance. I know love is derived from an old English word, but also the cause came from the Sanskrit, meaning love is equated with the cause of life. We commonly think of love as sort of benevolent feelings and use it as a term of endearment or expression of affection. But we don't equate it with our life force. How often do we equate love with the freedom that the creator of our life force has given us? And this is what's happened with the freedom we've been given. We have been subject to the lies of other people. And often, even the liars don't realize they're liars because they've been trained. But love basically is who we are. We'll never really comprehend its mystery because love is the source, is what I discovered from the Word, that love is the divine mystery. It can't be defined.
Wow.
And really, we can't define it. We can't define the divine mystery. There's a woman named Glenda Green who's written, and I'm going to read a quote from her. It's really powerful, I think. She wrote a wonderful book. Love is the only power in life, and it's the original point to which all vectors of thought are connected. Where there are contradictory thoughts, there also will be difficulties. Until one's relationship to love is changed in the heart, nothing fundamental will change in life. What is perceived as negative emotion is not the absence of love, but merely reversals of thought that are undermining love's power and goodness. Love disabled by negative thoughts can be a dangerous thing, for there's no greater power than love, and nothing closer to the soul. So the energy of love can be compared to water, which on the one hand sustains our life and enhances us. On the other hand, it can cause much harm, as we know. Floods and terrible tornadoes, terrible hurricanes, things that really are very destructive. People search for love, in many different ways, and they often look to another person to complete what they feel is lacking in themselves, and I think that's a primary cause for the breakdown in many relationships, because either we don't know or we've forgotten that love is this essence within each of us. And overlooking this, we've generated a misunderstanding that our consciousness is somehow separate from our true nature, which is love. And so everything else in life is constantly changing. Love, the essence of life itself, is the only constant, the only enduring constant. And Gandhi wrote that we either let the law of love rule us through and through or not at all. That he said, I think that love among ourselves based on hatred of others breaks down under the slightest pressure. The fact is, such love is never really real love. It's not what the word means. It's an armed peace he talked about. And so it'll be in this great movement in the West against war. War can only be stopped when the conscience of mankind has become elevated to recognize this supreme law of love in all walks of life. And we'll either consciously follow that law of love, whether we do or not. The law will work, just as the law of gravity works, whether we accept it or we don't accept it. But the person who discovered this law of love was far greater scientist than any of our scientists. We just haven't gone far enough. If it ruled, for instance, think about it. If the law of love ruled politics, religions, businesses, corporations, educational institutions, all the aspects of life we live in, what would our world look like? We'd have a revolution, a big revolution. Many of our motions, though, seem to block this. So it's possible that people who are hurting and often hurting others, simply they aren't able to understand this, to show it. If they do, they've forgotten their true nature, maybe. And
right.
I think, do you agree that you think maybe people have forgotten their true nature?
Absolutely. And in fact, they've even forgotten, the root of all of these words that we deal with and the symbols. And I've been waiting to jump in here because I'm chomping at the bit when you're talking about love. And one of the things I did, I immediately saw I always, as soon as I look at a word, I start reading it backwards. You get, when you read love backwards, you get evolved if you add the VE after.
Yes.
Yeah. And so love can cause us to evolve into something greater. Yeah, if we appreciate that, the reverse meaning. But I actually found out the root. You're welcome. And I found the root of the word love, actually. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay. If we go, how they manipulated the words? Well, they gave us these European words over the original Aramaic, like in the scriptures. How come they didn't give us the word, you've heard of Elohim, of course, right? Elohim?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Elohim, and they say that's, Lord, right?
Yes.
Or I sometimes get confused. It's either God or Lord, and then the other one they say is Yahweh. But if
Yahweh
why did
is God.
Thank you. Yeah, and Elohim is Lord. And so why did they remove us? I don't want anyone to manipulate my words. I want to have the original word so I can read it for myself and I'll determine. But they took those words away and they glossed over them by these European terms, God and Lord. And so when I go back to Elohim and I started looking at the etymology and I'm the only one that I know that actually can define the true meaning of the word Elohim, which is the regenerative force within nature. In the ancient thought, the stars, the sun, the moon, and the earth itself was Elohim. And even we are Elohim, the enlightened ones, if we recognize the truth, and we are indeed enlightened. And so the ancients who rule the world want to call themselves Elohim because they think that they are enlightened, but of course they're not because they're bloodthirsty murderers, and they've been destroying mankind from the beginning and killing us with words. But what was profound, at one point, I was looking at the word Elohim, recognizing that it was the feminine aspect of nature, which is, the physical world that we see, and it's feminine by design, and that's why woman is representative as of the product of nature. And so Elohim is actually incomplete, as we were talking at the beginning of this program, that the words were abbreviated. And so at one point I could see what was missing, and it was the word love, because it's not Elohim, it's actually Elohim. Elohim, and therefore now we understand when they say that God is love, because God is Elohim and Elohim is love.
That's right.
Now get this. You ready? This is sweet, because if it's true that this is the feminine aspect, the female side of nature in the stars, the sun, the moon, the planet, the physical nature, and it's Elohim. Well, don't lose your point here, Desert. The word, then in the very word itself being feminine, what if you would break it into its component parts? And you can hear it in our modern thought, and I don't know if this is the enigma of nature, it's the hand of our Maker, or if it's just how it evolved through time to maintain its pure thought. But Elohim, if you break it apart, is actually saying, I love him. And that's the woman speaking about the divine Maker of the universe.
Yes. Well, speaking of woman and the feminine, the word peace. Peace is derived from the Latin pax, meaning the goddess of peace, who oversees peaceful agreements between belligerents, and the Latin pactum, meaning to make a covenant. Peace stems from the feminine aspect of ourselves. And the way I see it is that the feminine is inherent in both females and males, just like the male is inherent in the female. And the soul of peace indicates that it's the feminine principle that facilitates peace. All of us have this innate, intuitive ability to be peacemakers. First, we just need to recognize and put into practice this feminine quality that's within each of us. But this is an active force that we see many women and men put to good and effective use. For instance, child rearing, and I think that there's something feminine is discoverable in the countenance of all men of genius. And Joseph Campbell, among many others, has indicated that if we were to recognize and experience peace in our own lives, the world would naturally come to peaceful ways of being, one person at a time. And he said that our job really is to straighten out our own lives. So I think if we stay in touch with that feminine aspect, we'll come to realize that that's that universal principle of divine receptivity. It's a creative, intuitive force. And it moves us to take dynamic, energetic, relation-building, community-building initiatives. I think, we see it in great people. I think of Robert Mueller, who used to be a former Assistant Secretary General at the UN. And he had a lifelong career as an emissary of peace, and he established this peace university in Costa Rica. And others have been launching a movement to establish a federal government cabinet-level Department of Peace. And it's moving through Congress slowly, where people are joining, some of the Congress people are joining in with it. But, the members of Congress have to get a lot of money in order to stay elected. And it's the root of everything. I'm going to get into that because I have to say that it's something that is so basic that the root of everything is the fact that there's greed in the world, and money is such a large issue.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. Go ahead.
Confucius said, if the language is not correct, then what is being said is not what is meant. And if what is being said is not what is meant, then what must be done will remain left undone. And if everything that is important remains left undone, then the truth, along with all history, custom, and true science, will all soon deteriorate. Then pure justice will all go astray. And the people will then be standing around in an helpless state of idleness and total confusion. So it is for this reason alone then that there must be no arbitrariness nor vagueness in whatever is being said. This matters absolutely and above everything else.
But Confucius was so wise, This is really amazing because he was speaking a long time ago. He also said, Confucius said, he who does not know the heart of words cannot know the heart of man. That stuck with me for a long time when I was writing. That he who doesn't know the heart of the words, we can't know the hearts of one another. But I love the quote you gave, Confucius. I'd love to have that one, too. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I'll be glad to get that for you.
Yeah. And
why don't you give out your contact information, Mary, in case people want to get your book? Tell them how they can get that.
Well, my book is available in any bookstore. It can be ordered if they don't have it on the shelf. And it's The Hidden Souls of Words, and the subtitle, Keys to Transformation Through the Power of Words. And Select Books is the publisher. They could go to www.selectbooks.com. But I also have a website that's Mary@hiddensoulsofwords.com is my email. I don't mind receiving. And it's www.hiddensoulsofwords.com, the website. And I established a foundation called Hope Incorporated back in 1985 that I give the proceeds from this too, which continues to address the material and spiritual needs of children and their caregivers. So Hope Incorporated will be benefiting in the world, and I don't have any overhead or anything, so it all goes to a good cause. That was my purpose, one of my purposes in writing. And
if anybody out there has a comment or question for Mary Garner, then you're certainly welcome to get on the conference line with us. The number's on the opening page of therealpublicradio.net. And just dial in, and you'll be muted out. Just unmute by hitting *1 and state your first name, where you're calling from. I'd love to hear from you. And Mary, you're a lady after my own heart. You seem to be senior to me. I'm 53. How old are you?
I am 71.
71 young, huh?
Yes, 71 young. You seem all
wow. Right. Well, that's it's just there's not too many etymologists out there, and I've got some friends that study the law, and they're totally into words. They collect dictionaries. We're big on the legal diction, but to get in more of the esoteric nature, get away from the legal stuff is a little more fun because let me give you just some examples of what they did to us with the legal words. So you may not have heard this before, and so it's certainly good for you to hear it, and maybe you can make some connections down the road here. But we have so many people today being beaten up in the court system, and as you said, that you were implying that the manipulations of man. There's wicked. There is a dark force behind what is going on in this world. Even though we know God, our Heavenly Father, however we want to define the androgynous mother, father, that they're really in control. But at the same time, they allow the darkness to prevail within this world in order to perhaps compel us to our own greatness and to overcome that darkness.
Yes, but we've given the freedom.
Yeah, the freedom of choice, but the occult, what I call the occult, the secret societies, the mystery religions, and all that have been running the world from the beginning, and then it goes right into the politics, the political scene, and it goes into, therefore, because the political scene is running the show, then it goes into education, then it goes into science, and then it goes into the law. And we've got so many friends today and neighbors, and just, we got mass population of people in the prison system today, and people go into the court and they say, hey, well, I know I'm innocent. I know that, I'm going to tell the judge my story. He's going to hear me, and I'm going to get out of here because I'm innocent. But then all of a sudden they find out they're doing 20 years in prison. They don't even know what happened. You know? And so I'm going to reveal. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I want to reveal a couple, of these esoteric meanings behind the words, just to give you a little slice of what is really going on in the courtroom, because, they've created legal fiction, right? The legal fiction is the all capital word on your driver's license. That's not really you, because you don't use all capital letters in your spelling of your name, and so it's not you on your driver's license. It is a legal fiction, and so when you go into court, you think you're going into a court of law, but you're not. You're really going into a commercial venue, and that's why they always want to get the money from you, and they're bonding people and putting them on Wall Street. And so when you go into the courtroom, the first thing, if you don't bring an attorney, the first thing they're going to ask you is, do you want to represent yourself, right?
Right.
But they put the accent. The problem is the accent is on the wrong part of the word. It's not represent yourself. It's actually, do you wish to represent yourself? You see? Do you wish to represent yourself as the fiction on this paper that is not real in the grand illusion? And then we know. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute, it gets better. And then now, how come all these innocent people today in America are going to prison? How come? What's going on here? Because, you see, it's already a slam dunk. It's already a given. They know before they come in that courtroom, they need your body because it's funding their operation in local government, city government, state, county, and federal. And it's the greatest slavery racket in modern time called peonage. And so when the judge is coming in his black occult robe, because if he really stood for truth, wouldn't he wear a white robe? Think about it.
Good thought.
Yeah. And so when he's coming in, they say he's what? He's presiding, right? He's presiding, right?
Yes.
But he's not presiding. He's actually presiding. And he's presiding
already
with the prosecution. He already knows in there you're going to prison. He don't care what you say. Say whatever you want. You're still going up to the river, buddy. Yeah. And so the prosecutor is there because, you see, do you know about the birth certificate, how they monetized the birth certificate and sold us into slavery?
No.
You know about that? Oh, that's another story for another day then, Mary. But so the prosecutor, the birth certificate becomes a security after you are born, and it goes to the state. From the state, it goes to the Department of Commerce in Washington, D.C., and from there it's sold on the black market all over the world. You can be owned by China right now, or your body can be owned by someone else in another part of the world. And so the prosecutor is there because they know that when they get your body in prison, your bond goes to Wall Street, and that's where they take that birth certificate, and that is the security. And if you look in the Roman Handbook on Civil Law from 1933, it says in there, if you want to create a security, the first thing you need is a hostage, literally. And therefore, you become the hostage for that security. It looks like you, it sounds like you, but it's not really you because it's all capital letters, and it's a fiction, but you think it's you, and so they drag you around wherever they want to take that fiction, and that security, and therefore you became the surety for that security, meaning you're going to guarantee it's going to make them money. And so the prosecutor is there for one reason, because it's one of those abbreviated words again. The prosecutor means pro-security. He's for the money. You get the picture?
Yes.
I know you can see it, yeah.
Yes. I do.
That's what's going down. That's what's going down. We're in trouble.
It's all hidden in the words.
Mm-hmm.
It's hidden in the words. That's really enlightening, very enlightening. Thank you for that.
Well, we're going to have to make you a regular on our network, I think, Mary. I really want to have dinner with you. I want to hang out with you. It's just, there's not too many people, that love words. In fact, all of our people today, in the schools, they're actually telling them, well, it doesn't really matter how you spell a word, or, you can do it, whatever you think is okay. And, they've totally broken us down. It's so bad. It's not bad. it's a decimation of modern time. We are actually the biggest slaves in our minds in the history of mankind right now. But maybe it's always been that way. Maybe it's always been that way because the people who are running the show are having a party on us at our expense. And I've read the first Middle English dictionary that was published in the 1800s by Skeat, and I literally read it from cover to cover, and then I read the Old English, and every word they use to define us, Mary, is a corruption. Okay, if you go into Old English, if you look up the word man means criminal and sinner. If you look up the word person, it means an actor and a mask. You are not a person. You have a person, and that's that security you're carrying around with you on your driver's license. If you look up a human being in Milankoff's dictionary, it says see monster. A human being is a monster, and it also means a mongoloid or a mixed breed, bastard, all these other terms. So every word we use to define us, when you look at its etymology, with maybe one or two exceptions, I mean, child means killed. Child means killed. So what it means is they killed you as soon as you came into the world when they called it a child. Baby is the root form of the word Babylon. So maybe if you're a baby, then you're Babylonian. Think about it.
Wow. My goodness.
I'm having fun with you, Mary, because I know you can appreciate it. And there's such a big universe. Not one of us can know it all. I mean, you know stuff I don't know, and I'm just having fun sharing with you some of the stuff I've learned.
Well, I'm learning a lot from you. I learned a lot from you tonight.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is Desert jumping in here, and I just wanted to mention if you would like to get a copy of the dictionary that I'm producing right now, just been working on it, cramming literally for the last 3 days now, and I've got the all-time Real Da Vinci Code dictionary. Okay, I'd love to get it to you. We need donations to keep the network alive. We're in a very critical time right now, and any size donation, I'll get you a copy. Okay, and then you'll hear the occult nature of our legal words. You'll see the original thought and diction. I'm doing translations. And I've got in the front my beginning of the translation of my original gospel, the Vishitu Targum translation, and then in the back, the appendix, I've got the Gospel of Thomas. And this is a very historical work. I'm making history right now, and you can support the translation, you can support the radio network, all at the same time. Okay, so I want you to think about it, PayPal, then just send me an email, and if I can Skype it to you, I'll Skype it. If not, you can send it by email, an attachment, okay? But we need your support, big time. Hope you're enjoying the program. Let's get back to Mary Gardner and the hidden souls of words. Thanks for tuning in.
Yes. Holly.
Well, I have been touched. I have to tell you that I'm not so smart. I have really been led down a path by my Maker, and He's allowed me to be at the right book or the right place at the right time to learn, to know. It's the, when Christ had his feet anointed by Mary, and he said, this thing that the woman hath done will be spoken about as a memorial for her. He wasn't really talking about Mary. He was talking about the woman. He said, the woman, this that the woman had done, and that's that Elohim again. And the love, that divine love that you were referring to, is that which will lead and guide us into all truth. So I have been on a trail of visions, and that has allowed me to learn all of this of the fact that we are in a very terrible time today, and they have killed us statutorily, legally, and in our minds.
Well, very much so. It's going on, and we have to be wary and aware. And becoming more aware every moment is just our goal, I think, as far as just being on the planet today. We have to become aware. I have a couple of things. One of them is that I stumbled on an interfaith information that recently. It was the birthday of Haile Selassie. Emperor Haile Selassie always pronounced the letter I, never as the number one, the first of Ethiopia. and he was revered by the Rastafarians, I think they pronounce it, who believed that he was descended from King Solomon in the Bible, and that Yah, J-A-H, they called it, took the form of Haile Selassie. He became the savior of the movement, the Rasta movement. And anyway, the language of Rastafi has its roots in Jamaican Creole, but it's distinct from the Creole and English. The I and I, for example, is frequently used in place of me to include the presence of the divine within the individual. And the I and the I is also used to refer to we, us, or them, and to imply that all persons are united under the love of Yah. There's a book on the subject. It's called, I think, Dread Talk, the language of Rastafi. It's very interesting the way they used the words, and he would never use, the I. He because it was always that you and I are one.
Yeah.
That we are connected again. And
I'm another you.
Yes, I'm another you. It's we and us and them all together. And that's what we have to come to understand. Did you ever read Art Buchwald to bring a little humor into all of this? Did you ever read some of the things he wrote? He wrote about the origin of war, and he said that it had to do with money, and he went into the origin of money. And if you went to his name on the internet, you could find it. What he wrote was very enlightening, I thought, about the origin of money and how it has controlled so much of life too. Of course, he was essentially a humorist, but he could take some of the most serious things, and he would, in a way, make fun. But he was writing a serious article when he wrote it. He wrote about death, and he was, supposed to die so many times, but didn't. And he wrote even about that. And then he kept saying that the big question we have to ask is not where we're going, but what were we doing here in the first place? And anyway, there was a lot of communication went on with him, and a lot of what I try to do is help bring about more effective communication to improve the outcome of things, whether it's simple or whether it's complicated. And some of my words in the book, I relate to listening, for instance, the word listen. Listen to yourself and listen to what others are saying, to be willing to raise your consciousness. So if you look at the word listen in my book, my book is divided just into different words, and it's in sections, but there's really, there's no wall among the sections. But then we have objectives in mind, and we determine if others are agreeable to discussion. If you look at the word communication in the book, it talks about sort of what is already in our mind when we start communicating with another person. And then with discernment, we discern all kinds of things. And then you look at the word honesty in the book, and it has a lot to do with discernment. And the word compassion, to be aware of the background of people